who are these people?
This doctor in northern Gaza, Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. That is clearly something that's happening where the international community is standing up, speaking out, and saying there's something wrong here. I mean, not like all of everything that's happened in Gaza isn't something wrong here, but this is beyond the pale. I mean, they've already destroyed the entire healthcare system effectively in Gaza. They were in one of the final, makeshift hospitals that was operating is Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. All right. A doctor who performed his son's funeral prayer and then returned to care for his patients. It is our duty to not forget him. Totally agree. All right. You sent me a video from Eva Bartlett that she had put up about him, that he is a director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, recently arrested by the Israeli invading forces. And I will show the picture in the video. A man of great humanity. Okay, his colleague implores the world to stand with Dr. Hussam, who says he stayed with them even when the Israelis were yelling at him. He refused to leave his staff, didn't do so willingly, but by force. Then they show him like getting in the tank, or you see that on another video.
بقي معنا ولن يخرج مع انه قالوا له يعني اخرج انت حر قالوا ما بتركوا الطاقم الطبي اخذنا وجينا نطلع بالليل بعدين زادوا عليه واعتقلوه رجل إنسانية نناشد كل العالم كل مؤسسات حقوق الإنسان بأن يقفوا بجانب الدكتور حسام أبو صفية الرجل العظيم الرجل الذي زرع بنا وفي قلوبنا الصبر لكي نصبر في شمالنا الصامت. والله ما خرجنا من شمالنا إلا غصبا لكينا دم على أبواب مستشفى شمال عدوان حينما خرجنا غصبا من قبل جيش الاحتلال. حسام أبو صفية
I mean, so you had this happen. He fought an army alone. This is now becoming a very famous picture.
What a crazy image, dude.
Of him staring down.
I think Crime did did a depiction of that. That was pretty good. There's
several. I saw several works of art that were depicting that. So that's Eva's take on it. Then we have Sana Saeed, who was formerly of AJ Plus, now independent. Follow her all over. She's on Substack. She's on Twitter. She's on Instagram primarily. Sana Face. They said Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya to stay Taman, where they raped Dr. Adnan al-Bursh to death. This was this was on New Year's Eve. That's where we have video footage of IDF soldiers raping a Palestinian man, leading to the Israeli riots and the Knesset debates over the right to rape Palestinians, which is insane. That's where they also, female IDF soldiers, rape Palestinian men. It's a torture camp. We saw him plead to the world for 84 days to protect his besieged hospital and patients. We saw him walk up to an Israeli tank, try to plead again for his patients, get arrested, and be sent to a torture camp. Yes, Palestinian healthcare workers are brave, but what has forced them to be brave is what should force us to hang our heads in shame. Yeah, absolutely. And then we even have Sharon Zhang. Again, we're only going to the best of the best here, who reported the day before that they had seen him there, and that he was beaten until his eye was bleeding. All right, again, Sharon Zhang over at Truth Out. They abducted and carried out a massacre in the hospital last week. I believe after they took him, they set the building on fire, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
A camp likened to Guantanamo Bay for Israeli soldiers, horrific treatment of detainees there. without charges. They'd either seen and recognized him or heard his name being read out.
Probably
That's
more similar to
CNN.
Abu Ghraib.
Yep. Not a fun story, obviously. All right, and the Israeli military has killed at least 60 Palestinian detainees in their custody. I think it's a lot more than 60. Okay, they treated them really badly, especially the doctors. Now, I thought had a Geneva Convention that countries are supposed to follow. Apparently, that's no longer a thing. Right.
No. Not for Israel. Right.
Israeli forces, of course, claimed without evidence that he was being held over suspicions that he is a member of Hamas. Why? Because he's a doctor who reports to the Hamas to the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. The UN is Hamas. We are Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. Same excuse used for nearly every Palestinian detainee. It's garbage. It's infuriating. It's a gaslight and a half.
What happens when they think the United States is full of Hamas? You know?
Well,
will they send their jackboots here too?
No, they don't need to, because they'll send Lavender AI with Where's Daddy, and they'll just drop bombs on people's houses. They'll start doing it, and Trump's not going to stop them.
How are those drones doing in New Jersey? You doing all right?
How about that? They seem to drop off the radar, huh?
Apparently.
All right. Images circulating online showed him walking toward the Israeli tanks in the wreckage of Israel's assault around Kamal Adwan. It was formerly the last operational hospital in northern Gaza. Basically, there are no... And they said that basically anyone that moves in northern Gaza now is shot and murdered. And that everyone there is... yeah, guilty automatically. Like, really? So we also saw somebody from Amnesty International say something, but I wanted to point this out, and this was the reason really why I brought this whole story, is not, it brings people together while this is awful and horrible. This doctor, Yipeng Ji, who was a family doctor in Ottawa, Canada, who had flown to Gaza, okay, I believe, but at the beginning of this month, I heard from Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya calling in from Gaza during a Doc Stop Genocide meeting. He spoke about the conditions in northern Gaza and the medical cases he and his team were seeing at Kamal Adwan Hospital, including witnessing and experiencing the targeted and deliberate attacks on civilians and many healthcare workers. So he put this picture up with the hashtag, and what it started was a movement of healthcare workers doing this. All right. So Sarah Wilkinson, famously detained by UK under Section 12.
Yep.
All right. She compiled a 2-minute video of more healthcare workers doing this. Well, let me just back this down so you can see it all. Scroll up. Healthcare staff across the world call for the immediate release of Kamal Adwan Hospital Chief Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. And let's play this.
Release Dr. Hussam! 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 Release Dr. Hussam now! 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 Release Dr. Hussam now!
Like, this is just not a few people.
Dr. Hussam now!
Is my point. That this many people who work in healthcare are doing this?
Release Dr. Hussam now!
Are you even aware?
Dr. Hussam, no! Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target!
Neither are journalists, but doctors.
Doctors are not a target!
Especially, yep.
Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target! Healthcare is not a target! Healthcare is... Stop torturing doctors! Stop torturing nurses! Release Dr. Hussam!
No, Dr. Nick, he is not. To my knowledge, at least.
Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam!
Positivity, Elon. Go fuck yourself.
Release Dr. Hussam! Hospitals are...
What is that?
Dr. Hussam!
What's that in Kill Bill, the crazy 88s? See the crazy 38s, bro. Don't worry about it.
That's right.
You know?
Not enough people are talking about it. I'm glad we are, at least. We're going to talk about this. All right. Here's another of the same 2-minute video. Okay. I didn't realize it was the same one. Terrible. Here's a few of the actual, the people that were in that video. Here's Dr. Jeb Newman, family medical resident. I call for the immediate release of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya and his colleagues. He was abducted. Calling for the protection of hospitals and medical workers in Gaza and end to the genocide. And this is just...
Or?
Yeah.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Not a target. Pick from nearly 10 years ago when America bombed Kunduz MSF hospital, killing 42 patients, staff, and visitors. But remember, this happened October 7th. This started then, right, everyone? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
Mary Kostakidis, famous Australian independent journalist and friend of, she's a Consortium News board member. Amnesty sounds the alarm as IDF denies arresting him, saying he's been disappeared.
Of course.
Right? So, and that was the other thing that I wanted to mention was that the IDF, again, starting 3 days ago, denied that they had him and had all in custody. Despite clear documentation of his arrest, the Army officially informed us today that it has no indication of the arrest or detention of the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital. He just disappeared like a fart in the wind. This dude literally went back to work after they didn't take him.
Wasn't me.
And the garbage that's been narrative that's been coming out of course, again, Hamas, out of the Israeli side is, well, he was a terrorist. He was helping the terrorists. Well, by fixing up the sick babies, he was a terrorist.
Terror. Terrorism. Terrorist. Terror organization. Terrorist attacks. Terrorism. Terrorist network. Terrorist attacks. Terrorist group. Terrorists. Terrorist. Terror. Terrorist.
Thanks,
Instruments of
Stubbs.
terror.
Thanks,
Terror
Stubbs.
network. Terror cells. Terrorists. Terrorizing terror and murder.
They can go fuck
Terrorizing
themselves.
terror.
The last thing for this segment that I wanted to bring was a poem that I saw the other day by V. McKenna. And it's titled "They Shoot Horses, Don't They?" They're shooting horses
in the Gaza Strip. They're shooting anything that moves at all. They shoot until they have an empty clip and then reload their guns and shoot a wall. They're shooting little kids right in the head, even cripples limping with a crutch. They're wasting ammo on the living dead and laying waste to everything they touch. They're shooting ghosts. They even shoot their own, those hostages they claim to care about. They film their crimes by shooting with a phone, the spectacle of what they're wiping out. Wondering, is this all really true? Do they shoot horses? Yes, of course they do.
Yeah.
Huh?
They of course they do, and we've seen that too. We've seen those videos of them of the horse literally just collapsing.
Yeah.
Like attached to a wagon,
really?
And then down to yeah. Sorry for the heaviness, everyone, but not enough people are still talking about this. You know, it's still happening. And because of that, we are
like, I'd love to not have to do heavy stuff every week, but turns out the world still is pretty heavy, you know?
Well, and
like, until it's not.
But this is one of the things that all those psyops are trying to distract you from actually paying attention to and focusing on. And it's just like,
that's why it's all about now positivity and love and information and education. No, it's not. Like, for whom? You know?
Yeah. Shout out to everybody out there that's live watching us. Hi, how are you? Love you all. Again, Happy New Year. Boats will be back. Yes. Boats is going to be back on the Ocho. Yep. We're doing it on the Ocho. We'll talk about the Ocho later.
The Ocho for now.
Okay, old man, yeah, we'll do it on both. But I think actually on Rumble we can only do it on one channel, so we're gonna, I think, put it to the Ocho. Whatever. We'll just the link is the same. It doesn't matter which channel it ends up at. You know, we can move it back and forth. Anyway, that's the way Rumble works. Angel, the Zionists are using their holy book as justification for their atrocities, just like some other people did to Jewish people during World War II. Yes, absolutely. Cynic is in the house. Hi, Cynic. You should not be here. I think you should be here. I love you, and I'm glad you are if you still are. Yes, go start. 41 kids a day murdered, 100 plus Palestinians a day genocide, and we know it's not about the hostages. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in Palestine, but more from a narrative management perspective. Man, that poem really got me. That just freaking beat the crap out of me. So, like I said, the reason why
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom,
covering stuff like that is why we get demonetized. That is a new gold bar at the top of the screen, Dr. Nick. That is correct, yes. It is support the media you want to see. We were able to, over the Christmas break, clear enough to pay off Zago and finish that project. So thank you to everybody that actually made that happen. And now we are just trying to fund the network and cover our annual expenses, which is close to about $2,000. And then we can start doing some really fun stuff. So thank you to everybody for making that happen. Yep, we had some new people just in the last week or so. Appreciate everyone hanging out on Friday night for American Tradition, where we reran the live walkthrough of what was it, Black Site. Yeah, so that was a good time. Maybe we'll do Extremist next week. Maybe we'll do that. But we're supposed to do a live show tomorrow.
It's American Tradition.
Tuesday night. Yeah, we're gonna do a live show, so that'll be Friday night. Tyler Russell, thank you so much. If you're listening, watching, or if you're around, annual subscriber to INN newsletter, and you can see I changed that at the bottom. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, and INNnewsletter.com are the ways to support, subscribe, and hook it up.
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
The next story is holy sheepshit.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
That's basically what we're talking about. Now, this is all from Indie Media Award honorees because we like to celebrate those guys. Celebrate Indie Media Award honorees like Matt Kennard, who was a co-founder of Declassified UK, has now since moved on and is doing some independent stuff. He's working with Apolitical, which is another channel I saw out there, British channel. He's been doing some things with Double Down News, but he put this out, and this was quote tweeting Alan McLeod, another honoree for Mid Press, another honoree. We're just going to go straight up. A few times. Middle East editor of the BBC News, previously worked as news editor for the State Department, the U.S. State Department. Yes, that is correct. While in post, he was informed that he was actually working for CIA, and he was absolutely thrilled about it.
Did you ever work for the CIA?
For decades, MI5 has had to approve every journalist the BBC hired. May still be the case. So that was a quote tweet of Alan going, what? So he found this somewhere in the Jewish Telegraph about a gentleman by the name of Raffi Berg. So we're going to learn a little bit about Raffi Berg.
Raffi Berg.
Right. Now, my question is, now that line says, quote, one day I was taken to the side and told, quote, you may or may not know that we're part of the CIA, but don't go telling people. Now, this was admitted. Go ahead.
Do you remember a particular other, like, CIA cutout telling the Gray Zone, like, we didn't know if there was CIA people in the thing, and the, you know,
that was the NED.
Like, there might have been. Sounds very familiar, similar to me, for sure.
Something like that.
You know?
So this came from the Jewish Telegraph, which I also find interesting and strange. Raffi had joined the BBC as an online reporter back in June 2001, just before 9/11. Huh? How about that?
Just before 9/11.
And he was the first person at the corporation to break the news of 9/11. Well, we all know why that was, because he kind of knew it probably in advance a little, but allegedly, I don't want to get us in trouble, but whatever. Anyway, my question is, why the fuck would he be stupid enough to admit that to a journalist? Even if it was at the Jewish Telegraph and he never thought it would get out, what? They kind of train you up to never admit that stuff to anyone, let alone a reporter. So, what's going on here? But let's also remember, and Kit Clarenberg, another honoree, friend of the show, friend of the network, might also add, BBC Verify is fronted by Mariana Spring, who not long ago lied on her CV trying to get a job for an NED-funded independent media outlet in Russia.
Oh, see? I knew the NED would show up here. Of course they are.
Okay. This is true. Yep. So, so we've got that going on there. So, I went to 2024
that name on there.
honoree, Normal Island News, friend of the show, friend of the network also. Apparently, the BBC has a guy whose job it is to cover for Israel. Well, now you're getting a paid post on top of it. I didn't even know that. So Snarky Laura says, it has been reported that the BBC has an editor whose job it is to whitewash Israel's war crimes. You'll be astonished to hear the accused editor is not me. His name is Raffi Berg, and it's claimed that he has full control over the BBC's coverage of Gaza. Remember when Gary Lineker was driven out of his job as a football presenter for not being neutral enough on Israel-Gaza? Thankfully, that standard doesn't seem to apply to pro-Israel news editors. As someone who's written a book called Red Sea Spies praising Mossad, Raffi Berg is the most neutral Middle East editor the BBC could possibly have. Red Sea Spies was written with large amounts of input from Mossad and, strangely, offered no criticism for the Israeli spy agency. Excitingly, Mark Regev and an Israeli ambassador called Ohad Zemet attended the launch of the book because they loved it that much. Even better, Benjamin Netanyahu keeps a copy of the book on the shelf behind his desk. Berg even boasted about this on Twitter like any impartial news editor would. Gross. Raffi Berg once worked for the U.S. Foreign Broadcast Information Service, which just happens to be run by CIA. He has a proud history of writing IDF puff pieces and flattering articles about illegal Israeli settlers. He even attended a rally in support of Operation Cast Lead in 2009, a massacre of 1,400 Palestinians. So as you can see, he is an all-around good egg. You therefore think that everyone at the BBC is delighted with its editorial direction as I am, but surprisingly not. More than 100 employees have signed a letter accusing the BBC of failing to live up to its own editorial standards, but I'm proud to say that when the letter was offered to me, I drew a dick on it. I'm so mature, unlike those fuckers at Drop Site News, who spoke to 13 BBC whistleblowers but didn't speak to me. Remember, this is a parody of Laura Kay, who is a BBC host. Okay? Drop Site News. Fuck Drop Site News, by the way. They may have broken the story, but fuck Drop Site News. That's Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill's bullshit propaganda. Not really the Intercept outlet moved over to Substack that they're lying to everybody about. That's still funded by the Intercept, largely, and they admit that, and that's cool.
Coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Yeah. She says, if Drop Site News spoke to me, I would have explained why covering for Israel is a brilliant idea, which is exactly why I'm going to do now. First of all, it's unfair to be attacking one man when another man on the BBC's editorial guidelines and standards committee was Robbie Gibb. Someone so neutral, he was the owner of pro-Israel propaganda outlet The Jewish Chronicle. Clearly, Israeli propaganda is a team effort, just one in which the concerns of the team are ignored, as they are apparently have been in complaint after complaint and meeting after meeting. Every sensible person understands the job of the BBC is to water down criticism of Israel and make false equivalences so it looks like both sides are equally to blame for genocide. Right, Piers Morgan?
Mm-hmm.
In case you didn't know, remaining neutral on genocide means not being too critical of the side that's committing genocide and suggesting that the victims had it coming. This is how impartial journalism works. Again, tongue firmly planted in cheek throughout this entire article. International law clearly states that if someone is ruled to be plausibly committing genocide by the International Court of Justice, you have a legal obligation to cover for them, just in case the world's most powerful court got it wrong. If you mistakenly accuse Israel, you'll make Zionists in New York feel sad. But if you cover for Israel, the worst that can happen is that loads of Palestinians die. Obviously, Zionist feelings are more important than Palestinian lives. Right? In one particularly impartial move, the BBC framed Amnesty International's declaration that Israel is committing genocide as Israel rejects fabricated claims of genocide because the population keeps growing except we covered that they stopped counting before October 7th. Just know the world's most prominent human rights organization does not have as much credibility as the people who bomb hospitals and call their victims human animals. However, to be balanced, the BBC ignored both the evidence presented by Amnesty and the confessions of Israeli politicians. That's fair and balanced for sure. Sensibly, the BBC delayed publishing the Amnesty story for 12 hours to reduce its impact and didn't bother mentioning it on any of its flagship news shows. Why bother? As a result of the suppression strategy, the story only reached a third of the people it would have been expected to reach. This shows just how important it is to suppress stories the establishment doesn't like. Other brilliant strategies employed at the BBC include referring to ethnic cleansing as evacuations, pretending that a teenage girl murdered by the IDF was standing near Hamas fighters, removing mention of Israelis chanting "death to Arabs" from the earlier version of an article, and not reporting that Israel was blocking aid into Gaza, even when this is admitted by the British Foreign Secretary. David Lammy is his name. He's a douchebag. Also that there is a decree in the IDF or IOF that they can murder up to 10 civilians for every alleged Hamas fighter that they think they're going after.
Yeah. Which we all know that would work. So that just means do what you want.
Right. Yes, the BBC is even more pro-Israel than the politicians who are blackmailed by Mossad. When one fact check by BBC Verify undermined the Israeli narrative about the IDF firing at aid trucks, that fact check was ignored in a BBC article written by Raffi Berg. Of course. His article didn't even mention that Israel kept contradicting itself, or that human rights organizations had presented evidence that contradicted Israel's lies. What else was Berg supposed to do? Inform you? Berg allegedly published a story which glossed over the fact that the IDF set a combat dog on a man with Down syndrome. We all saw that, mauling him.
Oh, covered that.
Soldiers locked the injured man in a room for a week. He literally called the dog Habibi and tried to pet the thing. They ordered his family to leave. His family later returned to find his decomposed body, but the original story barely mentioned what took place, presumably because no one could think of a positive spin. Shockingly, the story was later updated to stop the woke mob complaining about the BBC's coverage of one of the worst murders in human history. I guess some people will whine about anything. BBC News is the second most viewed website on the internet, after Normal Island News, of course, and therefore needs to ensure it does not upset Israel, even if it means upsetting its own staff. It turns out even senior managers at the BBC are concerned that the Gaza coverage is damaging the organization's reputation, as if there is one, but we can't admit they're powerless to do anything because Israel's in charge of the relationship. We're not supposed to acknowledge this under any circumstances, so please pretend I never said anything. Just know that Netanyahu could fire Keir Starmer if he wanted to. Never mind the managers at the BBC. And that's Laura at Normal Island News. Apparently, we're all going to have to start paying to read her outstanding journalism, which I'm disappointed to see because I thought that she was going to make it free. But I understand that if she's going to post stuff like that and risk getting arrested like Richard Medhurst, that I can understand why she's paywalling it, and we'll have to probably support her. She's also on Blue Sky. You can buy her a coffee, or you can buy a subscription here on
coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
I stole it from Reef. So Alan did a little bit of a deeper dive on this and looked at this guy's LinkedIn. Okay. Lowell, the BBC editor, literally used to work for the State Department and the Associated Press, by the way. Remember that I've been talking about how the fastest way to disseminate propaganda worldwide is using the Associated Press and Reuters and the wire services. Right? Alan wrote a fucking phenomenal article over at Mint Press. Everybody needs to go read this. This is must-see, must-read stuff. Right? And this is the deep dive dossier on Raffi Berg. That was Laura's kind of haha about it. This is literally like everything that he did, where he was, all right, that the U.S. State Department's Foreign Broadcast Information Service was, by his own admission, a CIA front group. He's currently the subject of considerable scrutiny after 13 BBC employees spoke out to Owen Jones, who we don't like, and Drop Site News, who we definitely don't like. But we liked Alan, so I'll take this. All right. Claiming, among other things, that his entire job is to water down everything that's too critical of Israel, and that he holds wild amounts of power at the British state broadcaster, and there exists a culture of extreme fear at the BBC about publishing anything critical of Israel, because he instills that fear. And that Berg himself, again, plays a key role in turning its coverage into systematic Israeli propaganda. Yeah. So,
I mean, the only problem with this is that it feels like they're putting a lot of blame on one guy, you know, in this system. And it's like, plenty of you could have said something, you know. So,
well, they did.
I don't mean like
they did,
McLeod, I just mean
but
people there.
Well, no, what they did was 13 of them spoke up to Owen Jones, who then published this over with Ryan Grimm. Now, my concern here is that both Owen Jones is a known Zionist. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on there. So this whole thing is suspect. All right, maybe he was bragging, but it doesn't seem so. But he also is a journalist that didn't want to see necessarily that biased coverage because it was over the top. I don't know. I'm not really, again, I never read the Drop Site article because I won't give Ryan Grimm even that view. Yeah. Screw that guy. But I will give, like I said, Alan a view. Alan dug up this person's LinkedIn bio, and you can see where they worked and that they've been in broadcast media on behalf of the CIA for decades. All right. Berg does not dispute that he was, in fact, a CIA man. That was a 2020 interview with the Jewish Telegraph. Said he was thrilled to be working with the agency. Right. CIA, however, is not the only clandestine spy agency which he has a long history of collaborating. He wrote a book about the Mossad. Chloe, as we said. All right. Talking about the Israeli operation to clandestinely smuggle Ethiopian Jews into Israel. We all know what they did to the women there, too. Also,
we talked about that. They
sterilized the women against their will or without telling them. All right. Lionizes Israel and its spies without, it's perhaps unsurprising considering how much input Mossad had in its creation. All right. He's fed. He is completely taken care of, fed, and one of their boys. All right.
Did you ever work for the CIA?
Of course he did. But it wasn't just the CIA, it was Mossad because they work hand in hand. Right?
It's a mystery. It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
That a BBC Middle East editor would not only frame these images and documents and put them pride of place in his office, but also chose to display them while talking publicly in an official role is telling. They're talking about the book that Netanyahu keeps behind him. The BBC suspended 6 of its reporters for simply liking pro-Palestine tweets. And yet, overtly pro-Israel advocacy has been treated as entirely unproblematic because they're allowed to murder as many people as they want. Well, look, UK is providing the spy flights to allow them to do so. So is it really that much of a surprise? No. All right. It's entirely possible that a pro-Israel stance would help one climb a ladder at the BBC, an organization long known to display strong bias in favor of the country and its interests. Again, remember where Israel was cut out from, and who gifted the land to, quote unquote, the state of Israel. Came from Balfour Declaration, the Ottomans, City of London.
Yep.
All right. One of his first BBC articles profiled the Israeli military and its recruits, presenting the IDF as brave protectors of their homeland. God. Right. Then you have extraordinary revelations. Shortly after Operation Pillar Defense, he was promoted, becoming the head of the BBC's Middle East desk.
Of course he was.
He has helped turn the network into
fail upwards.
Systematic Israeli. He's just doing as he's told, and that is not necessarily failing. I mean, but a micromanager, numerous journalists reportedly attempted to notify management of their issues with Berg, but their complaints fell on deaf ears. Almost every correspondent you know has an issue with him. He's been named in multiple meetings, but management just ignores it. Why? I tried to find somewhere that, remember that somebody reminded us, I think it was Gordon, everybody in the UK has to pay a BBC license. It's like part of their taxes.
Yes.
So they're paying for this propaganda on top of everything.
Berg is alleged to have made extensive pre-publication edits to other stories, changing the framing of news events to shield Israel from blame, whitewashing the Israeli attack on Shireen Abu Akleh.
Right.
BBC's text, allegedly penned by Berg himself, read, "Violence broke out at the funeral in East." Where'd it go?
I wanted to make it a little bigger. I wanted to make it bigger. Sorry.
Violence broke out at the funeral in East Jerusalem of reporter Shireen Abu Akleh, killed during an Israeli military operation in the occupied West Bank. Her coffin was jostled as Israeli police and Palestinians clashed.
Jostled?
As it left a hospital in East Jerusalem.
We watched Richard Medhurst do a thing. Watched it again recently because we talked about the origin story, my origin story about 6 weeks ago. And we watched that clip where he goes, jostled. You said she was jostled. They tried to pull her coffin down and knock and attack her pallbearers and killed during an Israeli military operation. Who killed her?
Occupation.
Who killed her?
Yeah.
Thus, Abu Akleh's murder by Israeli forces was downgraded to a mere death during an operation, which with no perpetrator mentioned, like we said. While police attack on a funeral procession was presented as a clash between rival factions, presumably of roughly equal responsibility. All right. And there's other whitewashings that have happened. Israeli soldiers, here's the one with the attack dog and the Down syndrome guy. The lonely death. They actually had to change the headline. Israeli soldiers set an attack dog on this disabled man and watched him bleed to death. You'd never guess this from the BBC headline, though, of course. I believe that they had to change that. What was this about Tariq Haddad? I just saw something. All right. Whatever the veracity of the drop site allegations, the undisputed fact that a former U.S. State Department and CIA operative is calling the shots at the BBC for its Middle East coverage is undoubtedly of public interest. Why is the CIA having control over the British foreign state-run media and its coverage of Israel? Weird.
And why is all this stuff pushed through intercept cutouts on top of that? Whatever. Just me.
Okay, again, it bears a striking resemblance to the accusations of journalist and Indie Media Award honoree class of 2023, Tariq Haddad. In 2019, Haddad had resigned in frustration from Newsweek, claiming that the outlet systematically stymied him from covering the important Middle East news stories that didn't align with Western objectives. Perhaps most strikingly, though, he claimed Newsweek employed a senior editor whose only job was seemingly to vet and suppress controversial stories in the same vein as Berg. This editor also had a similar background with state power, as Haddad had concluded that the U.S. government was basically controlling and blocking his stories. And he said, when I resigned from Newsweek, I did so because all reporting on foreign affairs went through a particular editor, who in my case turned out to be connected to the European Council on Foreign Relations.
Yep. Which is like their NED, right?
Yep.
I remember correctly.
Well, Council on Foreign Relations is much higher. It's like one step above the Bilderberg Group and the World Economic Forum. Implications of former national security state operatives dictating global media output are profound. This is not at least in the least because the State Department and CIA are among the world's most notoriously dishonest and perfidious institutions. I love that word, perfidious. Regularly injecting lies and false information into public discourse and to further Washington's ambitions. As Mike Pompeo famously said, we lied, we cheated, we stole. I was a West Pointer. We couldn't do that. Furthermore, both organizations have a long history of organizing invasions and coups and, of course, color revolutions in foreign countries, drugs and weapons smuggling, and human trafficking, allegedly, operating a worldwide network of quote-unquote black sites where thousands are tortured, allegedly. CIA in particular has an extensive record of penetrating media outlets. As far back in the 1970s, Operation Mockingbird, the Church Committee Unearthed, a secret project to infiltrate newsrooms across America with secret agents masquerading as journalists. Investigative reporter Carl Bernstein's work found that the agency had cultivated a network of over 400 individuals it considered assets, including Sullenberger, the owner of the New York Times at the time. What's really funny to me is
you mean Carl Berenstein? Berenstein.
The Berenstein Bears? No, Woodward and Bernstein.
Correct.
No, that's Woodward and Bernstein.
The Bernstein Bears.
But the funny thing is that Carl Bernstein's partner that got famous with him became one of those 400 individuals considered a CIA asset. Bob Woodward puts out CIA propaganda regularly. All right. Now, again, we talked about John Stockwell, former head of CIA task force, talking about we pumped dozens of stories of Cuban atrocities and ran fake photographs. Frank Klebenstein, what? Even drop site media, I believe, is often fed fake stories by their CIA contacts, and they can't deny that they have CIA contacts because they're getting way too much shit. All right. And we're going to talk about CIA contacts and all that stuff in the next article. Hey, how about that? A tie-in. All right. Process continues this day, like Havana Syndrome and bounties on American soldiers in Afghanistan. And let's not forget about the story of giving Viagra to the soldiers and them committing rape on people because that fit their narrative.
Yep.
Cable networks routinely employ a wide range of former State Department or CIA officials as personalities and trusted experts. Former CIA Director John Brennan is employed by NBC News and MSNBC, while his predecessor Michael Hayden can be seen on CNN. Top anchors such as Anderson Cooper and Tucker Carlson have their own connections to the agency. Deep. Very deep. Very deep. Okay, then he's talking about Dawn Scalise, who's a 33-year-old CIA veteran, left her job as a national intelligence manager for the Western Hemisphere at the DNI to become the global business director of the international news conglomerate Reuters. Huh. Like I said, fastest way to disseminate propaganda worldwide is via the wire services, AP and Reuters. This was a political hire that was barely hidden. In Scalise's official announcement, they declared her primary responsibility would be advancing Thomson Reuters' ability to meet the disparate needs of the U.S. government. God. Oh, yeah. Also, don't forget about Catherine Marr, the propagandist that runs NPR now, who used to run Wikipedia for the CIA, who had no qualifications before that. Social media, too, of course, is full of former U.S. national security state agents. His previous Mint Press investigations uncovered networks of dozens of ex-CIA officials working at Google. He also found them working at Facebook, or Meta, all right, Twitter, all the TikTok, the Chinese Trojan horse. Very famously, I remember that
you don't stop.
That Reef and Jesse Jett covered that article 2 years ago. We covered that 2 years ago. Sounds like Steve Poikonen over here, right?
Tic-tac-toe, a winner.
Right, which is, oh, by the way, TikTok's probably going to get shut down in about 10 days if they don't find a buyer. Trump is trying to negotiate with judges and everybody else to try to keep it afloat to the point that he can let the chains off and let that thing come back up. Maybe they'll shut down for a week till he takes inauguration and says, all right, enough is enough. I don't know how he's going to overrule a court ruling and appeal that also got overruled. You know, they got sustained, sorry. But, of course, we know that the BBC has been cheering on and whitewashing the genocide in Gaza. Here we go. NED, another unofficial branch of the CIA, has spent millions of dollars funding a wide range of media outlets in the UK. USAID is the third largest funder of BBC Media Action, which is the company's charitable arm, donating over $2 million annually there. So, yes, the BBC itself has faced repeated accusations of pro-Israel bias, which is really funny because if you ask any Israel supporter, any Zionist, they think that the BBC is practically Hamas. It's hilarious. All right.
They think everything's Hamas.
Well, that's true.
You know.
All right. Here.
Like,
Tariq Haddad agreed that much of the network's coverage had been subpar, telling Mint Press that the BBC, of course, quote, like many institutions, has fallen way short of their coverage in documenting what Israel has done in a densely populated strip of land we know as Gaza over the last 14 months and prior. Totally agree.
Among many other issues during many other date ranges.
Totally agree. Another Mint Press article by Robert Inlakesh, 2024 honoree, about the pro-Israel bias in the BBC exposed by those leaked internal emails and internal studies. Yeah, that comes months before the drop site investigation. Remember the pattern. Ryan Grimm gets celebrated for breaking news 6 months to a year after somebody else already broke it. This happened very famously after October 7th as well, when Max and the Gray Zone and the Zay Squirrel and several others had reported on the Hannibal Directive. But for some reason, when Ryan published it in December, that's when everybody seemed to notice and be like, oh, okay, I guess so now.
I mean,
yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy in the ear. Fuck him in the other ear. Partially as a result, public confidence in the broadcaster has fallen to an all-time low. I can't imagine why. In July of 2023, again, this is before October 7th, just 38% of Britons said they trusted the BBC to tell the truth, down from 81% 20 years previously. I wonder what happened. And since October 7th, its biases have been put under even more scrutiny. Now, there's a lot of Israel supporters that'll be very happy with that, and a lot of Zionists in the UK that will be. But there's also a lot of anti-Zionists that are not happy about that. All right. Again, this is, like I said, a long article. Here's the end of it. To be clear, this article does not claim that Berg or anyone else at the BBC is a plant. I'll claim it, but...
I will, though.
No, yeah. I'll claim. Nor is it accusing him of any specific wrongdoing beyond working at a distinctly biased network. Except that we have evidence that he specifically changed stories to benefit Israel. So I'll do that. He's a little worried about getting arrested for it, Section 12 stuff. what it is stating is that it is telling that the person in charge of its Middle East reporting has framed pictures and letters of Mossad commanders and high Israeli officials on his wall as if they are rock stars and he is a teenage fan. That someone such as this rose through the ranks is a clear indication of the kind of culture that exists at the BBC, one that has systematically demonized Palestinians and manufactured consent for genocide. Nothing he's saying there would get him in trouble as far as Section 12. He's not advocating for anything to happen. He's not reporting anything that would potentially get him out of school or supporting anything that would get him potentially arrested. We don't want to see that happen to Alan for sure. Alan's awesome. He's a beast. Let me see what else. Oh, so not only is it happening at the BBC, and that's the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick, was that our friend Gen X Girl, I don't know if everyone is following at Gen X Girl 1994 over on Twitter. She's awesome. She's been putting together these cool graphics, and hopefully we help her go viral wherever we can. One of them, of course, is Vicegrad, which I know Reef and Colin covered like a year ago, the Polish outlet that has a lot of NED funding as well and ties to U.S. intel community. They're whitewashing Germany's war crimes and what Germany is doing to defend Israel and their whole push toward anti-Semitism, quote unquote, and prosecuting it. Of course, we know they're doing something similar to C.J. Hopkins in creating the new normal narrative and prosecuting anybody that challenges their new normal narrative. All right. We've also got the New York Post is Israel propaganda. Again, not a surprise. How did the New York Post get access to a crime scene? Now, I didn't want to talk about PSYOPs, but this is one that it glowingly jumped off the page at everyone to the point where it was just, if you believed this, why? It just went to show you who it's working on and who the propaganda works on and who it doesn't. Now, first of all, yes, this was a PSYOP. So first of all, what had happened was this woman who works for CNN somehow was given access to the person who had run through a crowd of tourists on New Year's Eve on Bourbon Street, murdering 15.
Blatantly, like, contaminating crime scene, but whatever.
So she gets to walk through an active crime scene, and the way that it's laid out, that, the Quran just happens to be open to a certain page, and all the again, like we talked about.
Mein Kampf is probably there too.
We talked about this with Luigi a few weeks ago when I claimed that I didn't think Luigi was the person that did it. An orgy of evidence. This here also is the existence of an orgy of evidence, because if you're not paying close enough attention, it makes it an open and shut case. Well, they found the person, they found his apartment, they found the material he used to do it, they blah, 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 and it fits all together, nice, neat package, send that guy to jail, and it's all over. Nobody has to worry about the story anymore. Except that's not really what happened, and we know that. So Gen X Girl put together this New York Post thing, because the Post, as well as others, are covering for this PSYOP. Why? How did the New York Post get access to a crime scene? Their reporter, I'm Israel Chai. Yeah, what a surprise. All right, puts on her bio. All right, that means long live Israel. New York Post owner Lachlan Murdoch secretly meets with Netanyahu. New York Post owner Rupert Murdoch, who says that in another month, America gets back beside Israel, meaning Trump. All right. The woman who was let in is a woman by the name of Jenny Taylor. She said that...
Taylor?
Yeah, it's a whole mess. New York Post story. Murdoch bought the Post in 1976. We know that. He's also... a staunch Israel supporter. He owns Talk TV that Piers Morgan is on. His son Lachlan has now taken over the outlet and the entire media entity. But what I wanted to do was bring Fiorella, our friend of the network, of course, friend of INN. Fiorella did a whole deep dive on her. Jenny Tare, reported for the New York Post and raging Zionist with Israel ties, magically gets access to Shamsuddin Jabbar's place and finds an open Quran and a bomb-making station, proving he's an ISIS terrorist. By the way, ISIS is on our side, guys. ISIS is pushing to have normal relations with Israel and Syria now. Lamal, worse setup
intelligence service
than the iOS fake Hamas secret tunnels. First of all, the yoga pants and the baseball hat is ridiculous. She says that she's not just a Zionist.
Fee. Come on.
That's right. She's not just a Zionist who said Zionism is a key tenet in Judaism, but her family is in Israel and are OG settlers. Oh. Yep.
Oh, God.
Yep. Okay. Texas reporter covering the border. Hablo poco de español. Seen on Fox News, Newsmax, all the Chudley stations, because she's a Zionist, so they're happy to have her there. All right. Yep. Apart from Israel, Tare's focus has been the border psyop, which has been people volunteering to have the state increase AI and digital surveillance to get those pesky immigrants. Yeah. This entire thing is being done on purpose to promote animosity among U.S. citizens and fearmonger about foreigners while the U.S. gets cheap labor and increases the surveillance state. They're not trying to keep them out. They're trying to keep us in.
Yeah.
Manufacturing consent for war and digital surveillance, but you won't hear that in her reporting, of course. They don't go that deep. She's not allowed. Bring them home. She's reposting the fucking awful of Eva Klompus, who I blocked.
Yeah.
Right? This was Alpha News, gross. Right? A knife intifada. Okay. Forget the occupation. Oh, and nearly 50 attendees of the Nova Festival died by suicide allegedly since October 7th. I don't know if that's a fact or not. That seems like more Israeli propaganda. If they're that traumatized, they shouldn't have joined the IDF to begin with, because the majority of people that were there were ex-IDF soldiers. There were a certain amount that were taken. There were also a certain amount that were taken hostage. And you break that all down, they don't go that deep, like he said. Here's the read the BB quality report here. Yes, thank you, Colin. Fuck that hoe. So that's Fee. Shout out to Fee. Follow Fee. She's over at Truthwire. That's now that used to be Convo Couch. Now it's called Truth_Wire. Truthwire. Go give them a follow. They set up a new channel. They set up a new channel on Rumble, so go follow them over there. Also look at Beyond Headlines, I believe, is another thing that she's hooked up with. So go check that out. Again, talking about stories like this is why INN gets demonetized. Yay! We're demonetized on YouTube. Now, my channel, where this is actually running live as well, is not demonetized. You could leave a super chat over there. Don't. Please don't. Go to one of these other places. Fuck YouTube. I don't want them getting any money. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, or INNnewsletter.com. That's a great place to subscribe. Tyler Russell subscribed this morning for an $80 annual subscription. Not too much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Your egregores agreed. Fee is awesome. That was a good breakdown. There's a ton more connected with this. The fact that he served at Fort Bragg and the other guy served at Fort Bragg and there's somebody else at Fort Bragg and there's all kinds of nonsense going on with Fort Bragg. That's a psyop to begin with too. Why do they want the the military community at odds and battling each other internally about stuff, and the Navy getting mad at this guy and making the military in general look bad because of this and that? There's a lot of weird shit going on there. Let me tell you. A lot of weird shit.
Crazy Dutch bastard.
She is a darn knockout. That's true. She's also one hell of a good reporter too. That's what Mouse said. Cameras don't do her justice. She's a hell of a knockout.
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen? What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
Oh, we're gonna play a speech that actually got me. When I was on the phone, when I was hanging out last night with Oz and Reef, and I kind of put the headphones on, and it was just me listening to it, and he said something at the end that just absolutely crushed me. And he's right. And what had happened here was that a Palestinian journalist by the name of Abubaker gave a 3.5-minute or almost 4-minute press conference. And Mary Kostakidis, friend, who's a Consortium News board member, writes, wrote a speech. Every journalist in the world should listen to this, and we're going to in a second.
And how old is this young man?
Oh, he's a teenager. Maybe 16, 17, 18. You can see he's incredibly young.
Yes.
Let me blow that up a little bit more so you can see it even clearer. And he says, I have a word to say against the lack of international support for Palestinian journalists. He writes for the he reports for the Electronic Intifada, by the way, as well. So shout out to 2024 honoree for one of the best outlets, Electronic Intifada. Thank you for sharing Abubaker Abed with us. And listen to this.
These are not my words, but the words of every single one here, standing here after 459 days of the most well-documented and first live-streamed genocide in history. For these days, we've been reporting tirelessly, extensively, and thoroughly on this genocide. It's indeed a genocide against us, which we've been documenting in makeshift tented camps and workplaces. They are really the places we've taken shelter since day one. You've seen us shedding tears over our loved ones, colleagues, friends, and family members. You've seen us killed in every possible way. We've been immolated, incinerated, dismembered, and disemboweled, and recently we've been freezing to death. What more ways should you be seeing us killed in so that you can move and act and stop the hell inflicted upon us? There are no words to describe what we've been going through, because you've seen our bodies, how they've become fragile, skinny, and fatigued. But we never stopped. We never stopped to tell you the truth, to narrate our stories, and to tell you that we are being genocided, to move your dead consciences, to help a population that has seen every sort of torture and tasted every type of death. Today, we're all standing here after Israel's impunity against us. And we don't know how many journalists should be killed so you can really act and stop Israel's impunity against us. Our message is very clear. We are journalists, and we are Palestinian journalists. We have been let down by the international community, particularly the international media organizations. We haven't seen any sort of support, a single word of support. Even the press vests we're wearing right now mark us as a target. They do not protect us at all. But yes, because we are Palestinians, maybe if we were Ukrainians or of any other citizenship with blonde hair and blue eyes, the word would rage and rant for us. But because we are Palestinians, we have only one right, which is to die and be maimed. Finally, we are just documenting a genocide against us. It's enough after almost a year and a half. We want you to stand foot by foot with us, because we are like any other journalists, reporters and media workers all across the globe, no matter the origin, the color or the race. Journalism is not a crime. We are not a target.
Shit. I had to show that. Man, that kid's a legend.
This is the age where you should be giving valedictorian speeches or school president acceptance speeches, or, you know, your presentation to a classroom. Not this. You know?
I mean, what do you even say to that?
Who are these people?
I mean, what I say is, I'm so sorry. Journalism is not a crime. You're completely right and justified. It's disgraceful. It's shameful. It's horrifying to see it. We've been fighting the ideology of Zionism every day. They purchased or nullified all the Western politicians of any substantive power. And we deeply appreciate the Intifada for publishing your work. And one of the likes here was Abubaker. He saw it. So, fuck Israel for this shit. For making him do this. Brutal. Sorry, everyone, but this just killed me. He got me. Now, in a hilarious fucking prank, and he fucking drop bombs on your head, douchebag Blinken, he decided that he's going to reinstate the censorship office. So he's just a dickhead on his way out. All right. So we reported last week that we thought this thing was dead. It didn't make it into the new budget. But no, they decided they're going to now roll it into the State Department. All right. And make it now part of, again, we reported this Real Clear Politics story about how they shuttered it. All right. But now I skipped a touch. This is Matt Taibbi. I skipped a touchdown celebration because just after New Year's, Gabe reported in the Washington Examiner that as many as 51 GEC employees and tens of millions of dollars were moving in an effort to realign the office to a hub under a new name. The Counter Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference Office. That's literally what they're calling themselves now. Yep. And now they're going to report to the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy. What the fuck?
Who's the one that was supposed to be head of this before that everyone ridiculed online?
Nina Jankowicz? That's not the GEC. That's a different department. The GEC was the presidential appointed censorship information place, but this is the GEC. This is
right.
An extension of a Defense Department funded thing, I believe, but now they're rolling it into state effectively. So the Counter Foreign Misinformation Manipulation and Interference Hub is a mission center energizing a network of... God, I wonder where it came from. Oh, CIA? No, sorry. It came from Ken Clipsey. Oh, right, CIA.
Exactly.
Sorry.
If we could just stop using his shit, thank you.
All right, well, he keeps putting it out because they keep leaking it to him.
Yes, we know.
Right?
Yes.
It gets worse. Like he says that in case you were under the illusion that the government employees are grown-ups and would never play games with taxpayer money, GEC staff didn't just move funds and change a name. They took GEC employees from one location and physically scattered them throughout the State Department offices, leaving the operation in place but decentralized. They created a Hydra, the bureaucratic version of a fake mustache. Yes. They assigned 2 to each division.
Yes.
All right. The mission statement and memo gave this silliness away. So it appears this elaborate office shuffle was meant as a parting pants drop by Tony Blinken staffers in the direction of their budget conquerors. So fuck you, Tony Blinken.
A new world
in
order
so many ways. All right. And Matt, this is a paid Racket News article talking about the GEC and how Elon tried to kill the GEC. This was a whole John Oliver segment. I can't play that, obviously, on here. Thanks a lot, HBO or whoever owns that shit. But you can read the whole Racket News about this piece. But I did have more important news about Anthony Blinken coming from Mondo Weiss this week that I wanted to get to. And that was that he did an exit interview with The Shift, okay? So the State Department recently announced that it would notify Congress about another massive arms deal, this one worth about $8 billion. It includes medium-range air-to-air missiles, Hellfire missiles, 500-pound bombs, and more, which will, of course, be dropped on Abubaker's head. And that's why I brought this, because fuck you, Anthony Blinken, for that. The announcement comes amid a deluge of dire news out of Gaza: flood, famine, extreme cold. Israel killed more than 234 Palestinians during the first 4 days of 2025. No one tells you that. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International recently published reports saying Israel is committing genocide. Yeah, no shit. We've been saying it for a year.
Yep.
These kinds of developments have never prompted the Biden administration to stop the carnage or even slow down its support for the assault. No, they just keep doubling down and sending more weapons and money. Just one day before the State Department...
In between tapioca breaks.
He's not in charge. It's this guy. It's
I know.
And Jake Sullivan that are running the show. It's West Exec Advisors and the people that are running that. Just one day before the State Department announcement, the New York Times ran a lengthy interview.
New York Times?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. New York Times.
The corporate media stooges for imperialism and the state. All right. They ran a lengthy interview with Secretary of State Anthony Douchebag Blinken, reflecting on the past 4 years. And as usual, he comes off as a man gripped by delusion because he is deeply delusional. When confronted about the destruction of Gaza, Blinken acknowledges the suffering, but dutifully repeats the standard talking points about Israel's right to defense. Except that that's not defense. Leveling 80% of an area isn't defense, it's offense. Murdering hundreds of thousands of people, I don't give a shit what your count, it's hundreds of thousands. That's offense. All right. He's working hard to achieve a ceasefire. Yeah, bullshit. He denies that Netanyahu tanked. He denies that Netanyahu tanked an agreement that would free the Israeli hostages last July and puts all the blame on Hamas in that regard, as usual. Of course, Israel never has to release any of the 9,400 Palestinians it's holding in jails that they've arrested without any kind of trial or charge or anything. They just arrested them. They got them locked up in camps. They're torturing. They're raping. They're fighting for their right to rape and torture. Quote, one of the things I found a little astounding throughout is that for all the understandable criticism of the way Israel's conducted itself in Gaza, you hear virtually nothing from anyone since October 7th about Hamas, says Blinken at one point. Why hasn't there been a unanimous chorus around the world for Hamas to put down its weapons, to give up the hostages, to surrender?
Because they've already said they would, you dumb fuck. You know this.
I don't know what the answer is
You
to
know
that.
this.
Israel, on
Yes,
various
you do.
occasions, has offered safe passage to Hamas's leadership and fighters out of Gaza. They also, part of the negotiation...
Lock me in the room. Lock me in the room with them.
Right? Like the
Tired of
gaslighting
shit.
little twerp. And then he plays guitar and acts like, oh, I'm human. By the way, on the upcoming...
in a free world.
On the upcoming
This
Jesse
fucking
Jet...
shitty Springsteen.
On the upcoming Jesse Jet album, there will be a piece called Humanization Attempts, which is written about Antony Blinken and his attempts to appear and act human.
Look at the gaslight.
Yeah. He says, where's the world? Where's the world saying, yeah, do that, end this. Stop the suffering of people that you brought on. Wait, except Antony used the phrase that we made a t-shirt out of when resistance, when occupation, when you're occupied, resistance is justified. Is that not what I believe? We have a t-shirt at IndieNews.shop. You can pick one up there for. Colin designed that one.
Very close.
Something like that. There's one interesting part of the interview where Blinken essentially admits that most of Israeli society supports the genocidal destruction of Gaza.
And what better way to say I love you than with the gift of a spatula?
Mm-hmm. or destroying all the buildings in your area, sure. A spatula, 161.
Fucking
UHF.
plug the merch real quick.
The very first trip that I made to Israel 5 days after October 7th, Antony says, I spent with my team 9 hours in the IDF's headquarters in Tel Aviv. Well, that's your first mistake. 6 stories underground with the Israeli government. That's your second mistake. Including the prime minister. That's your third mistake. Including arguing for hours on end about the basic proposition that the humanitarian assistance needed to get to Palestinians in Gaza. Yeah, we see how well that worked out, Antony. Okay. And that was an argument that took place because you had in Israel in the days after October 7th a totally traumatized society. This wasn't just a prime minister or a given leader in Israel. This was an entire society that didn't want any assistance getting to a single Palestinian in Gaza. Like right now. No trucks have made it in since October, Antony, and you know that, you gaslighting motherfucker. Michael Aria from Mondoweiss, by the way, is the publisher of this article, and that they are also Indie Media Award honorees, and I feel like I'm doing their article a disservice by swearing so much, but I just can't seem to control my emotions on this one because it's such a gaslight. Blinken is accidentally drawing attention to potential war crime here. After the reporter from New York Times presses him on the issue, he makes sure to correct himself. Well, there's a big difference between intent and result, whether it's under the law or any under any one standard. They're hedging and
Cite one article of the Geneva Code for me.
Right. The results that we were seeing were grossly insufficient. That is, the results in getting people the assistance they needed. Just as making sure that people are protected. Yeah, like the Palestinian people that are getting burned in tents, you fucking asshole. I think has been insufficient. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that opinion, Antony. There's a very different question about what was the intent. No, I don't think there was a question about what was the intent. The intent was to murder the journalists, to murder the healthcare workers, to murder the teachers, to murder the women, to murder the children, to murder the workers, to arrest everybody. And to take the land and level it all. And oh yeah, by the way, that's what happened. Asked directly about whether Israel is committing genocide, he of course denies the claim and suggests things might be looking up for Palestinians soon. Geneva Convention, what? You just denied genocide again after the ICJ has already declared it to be a genocide, after Francesca Albanese from the UN 15 months ago declared it to be a genocide? No, it's not, first of all. No, it's not, because otherwise we would be funding and arming a genocide and we would be war criminals and subject to all those war crimes. Oh, of course not. Second, as to how the world sees it.
At the Legion of Doom.
Literally. I can't fully answer to how the world sees it. Yeah, because they fucking hate you. But everyone has to look at the facts. The facts that an occupied people had a prison break after they had occupied and starved and taken away electricity and water and everything else for 75 fucking years. This didn't start October 7th, asshole. I think as well there is, in the wake of this horrific suffering, the traumatization of the Israeli population, the Palestinian population, and many others. How about the Lebanese population that all of a sudden just got attacked for supporting their Palestinian brothers and sisters? 1 million Lebanese displaced. They stole all that fucking land too, and he's got nothing to say about that. How about Syria? They just stole part of Syria.
They're about to do it. Yep.
All right. There's also a light that one can see that.
Oh, they said the Golan Heights will be a permanent part of Israel.
That's right. It's part of the Greater Israel Project. So interestingly, the early days of January also saw the Biden administration announce new sanctions on Sudan's rapid support forces. Weird. After the U.S. government concluded the group was committing genocide. Really? Look into the gaslight. You're literally sanctioning another fucking country for committing genocide? All right.
Look at the gaslight.
According to the UN, 150,000 people have been killed since fighting began in April 2023, and more than 11 million people have been forced to flee their homes. Those numbers sound awfully familiar to me, and awfully a lot like what's going on in Gaza. You can deny that all you want, Anthony, and all vote blue no matter who douchebags, and all the other genocide deniers out there. The New York Times report on the announcement contains this amazing paragraph, quote, "The genocide determination followed months of deliberation inside the U.S. government as lawyers and intelligence officials evaluated the merits of the case," said the two senior U.S. officials. They debate the merits of the case. Some officials hesitated to support the determination because they feared it might draw further criticism of the Biden administration over its refusal to declare Israel's campaign in Gaza a genocide against Palestinians. Wait, they look hypocritical about Gaza by declaring Sudan a genocide? Nah. Like they give a fuck. And then, of course, you've got this asshole from the ADL. I don't even want to talk about what a piece of shit Jonathan Greenblatt is. This guy makes Jews worldwide less safe. Period. Like me. I am a Jew saying, Jonathan Greenblatt, you are making me less safe as a Jew. Fuck off. You can use this bullshit to gaslight people and act this anti-Semitism bullshit. You are the one making Jews less safe. Capturing TikTok might seem less meaningful than holding on to Mount Hermon. Oh, you fucking piece of garbage. God, I can't stand that.
Yeah, except they captured TikTok too.
Yes, they did. Greenblatt called on U.S. and Israeli NGOs to start thinking outside the box by invoking the Israeli pager attack on Lebanon. You mean the Israeli terrorist attack on Lebanon?
Terrorist attack.
And the Israeli raid of an Iranian missile factory. You mean an attack on a sovereign country? All right. I'm not going to read through all that nonsense. Fuck Jonathan Greenblatt. And then I got one more fuck you from the Israelis to the Palestinian people. We covered last week the Palestinian doctor. Okay, Hussam Safiya. We still don't know where he is, except we think he's in State Haman. But worse, his mother died the other day.
Yep.
Heart attack.
And kids too, right?
Well, his kids had already died, but he continued to operate after his children had been murdered. But
that was it.
His mother died of a heart attack as he's held in the Israeli camp, basically not knowing where he is and out of concern and worry and probably a lack of health care and sleep and bombs dropping all around her and worry that her son is being tortured.
Dignity.
So fucking disgraceful. What the fuck are we doing? What are we doing?
Have you no decency?
Seriously.
Where's that? I want to hear that.
Have you no decency, sir?
You know?
May her memory be a blessing. Terrible. And again, like I say to Abubaker, I can't even begin to apologize to Dr. Abu Safiya. I mean, for all he's stood up for and all he's had to withstand, how do you begin to, besides just giving him his life back, apologize for all that's, I mean, you can't, but, well, we're certainly not monetized for covering shit like that. So by all means, if you're able to, I hate to beg for money like from that and everybody else that's in rough shape, and buy some merch at the Indie News shop. Sure. You know, scrolling across the bottom, he's about to break me. Journalism is not a crime. That kid killed me. He really got me. I mean,
yep.
So I'm sorry everybody for doing that to everyone. That's what I'm seeing in my world. That's what, unfortunately, we can't turn that off. We can't bury our heads in the sand and forget about it, because these people are actually suffering.
We're sorry.
But there are so many struggling and suffering out there, and to turn a blind eye to it and ignore it because we're good or because we're we have too much on our own plates to deal with. We can't. We got to keep our eyes open and our heads on a swivel, and that's what I'm going to keep doing. And I love you all, and it's just this was a tough week. Seeing some of those places in California and some of those families, and there was a 67-year-old guy who stayed with his son. Who had palsy or something, and they couldn't move him, and he couldn't get out, and he and his son both died. And there are tons of stories like that, and it's just, late stage capitalism and climate change that we're not doing anything about, and we don't have any real serious leaders that are not bought, paid for, and simps for the ownership class and the ruling class that are trying to kill us. And guess what? They're doing a good job of it. And I'm just here to report on it, unfortunately, and to amplify the good journalists that are reporting on it, that are sacrificing themselves like Abubaker, that are putting themselves in harm's way to get the footage, that are submitting FOIA requests and waiting for decades and pushing governments like Stefania Marizzi's been doing.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
What happened in Gaza? Apparently there was a ceasefire agreement that was signed. We're still getting tentative and kind of details of what was in that ceasefire agreement. Yeah. So I rely on the electronic intifada to tell me what's happening on the ground, because they have people in Gaza right now. And God, look at that photo. and that was from APA Images. All right, and that was on January 16th. That was just the other day that picture was taken. All right. In the lead up to the ceasefire announcement Wednesday, and in the hours following, Israel, of course, carried out massacres and campaigns of further destruction across the Gaza Strip. And so this is Nora Barrows-Friedman over at the Electronic Intifada, another Indie Media Award honoree. All right. Israel escalates airstrikes on Gaza in the lead up to the ceasefire. So they announced the ceasefire is going to happen Sunday, and all of a sudden now you see an escalation of further bombings and further attacks everywhere. And it was harrowing and frightening and horrifying to read the witness accounts of. All right. The more we hear about a potential ceasefire, the higher the pace of attacks, the more families are being targeted and killed. Approximately 60 Palestinians were killed in a series of attacks just hours before the deal was reached. And then there was like hundreds in the 5 or 6 days afterwards. All right, here. In the early hours of Thursday, Anas al-Sharif reported 30 Palestinians were killed in Gaza City a few hours after the ceasefire deal was announced. So right there, just 60 plus 30, that's 90. All right, that's just in 2 reports. Right? And then here you've got the attacks continued. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza said on Thursday, since the ceasefire deal was announced, 72 people were killed. All right, so that number went from 30 to 72. All right, plus the 60, so now you're at 132 minimum. That's just what's been reported. All right, now, you know this guy, he's dancing in the streets right now, believe it or not. He brought me to tears last week or 2 weeks ago, and wow, the death toll, he's reporting on it, and these people would have been celebrating if the ceasefire had been signed off on earlier today. Maybe, but we know that this is what they're doing. They're escalating attacks. So on the 14th of January, they bombed a shop along the coastal road in Deir al-Balah. That sparked a fire driven by strong sea winds, quickly spread to engulf makeshift encampments for displaced people. Was that intentional? I don't know. It certainly happened, and 67 families lost all their belongings as their tents were destroyed in the fire. After they've already, again, had to drop everything and run how many times already so far?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're losing what, 67 kilometers, even with the deal or something like that? Like square miles or something like that of Gaza?
That's all of North Gaza, basically, where Israel's cut it off.
Yeah.
And they're already starting to bulldoze and level and clear.
Right where a canal wanted to go through.
How about that?
So, funny how that works.
Right. So, Al Jazeera correspondent said on January 15th that Israeli vehicles were beginning to bulldoze the western side of the Indonesian hospital, which was completely rendered out of service last month. So not only, you think they're going to rebuild it for the Palestinians? I doubt it. Maybe because it's Indonesian, it's international, but I don't know. So again, there's a lot to this. Update on Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. This is also important. He's apparently been extended his stay, or whatever they want to call it, his imprisonment, through the 15th of February, transferred to Ophir prison on January 9th. During a video appearance at his hearing, all right, I haven't seen this one, in Ashkelon, all right, he seemed to show no apparent signs of torture, physical deprivation, or malnutrition. That's a good thing. However, a video alone cannot fully picture his condition. The lawyer urgently needs to meet him in person, which they blocked him from doing. All right. And he's barred him from meeting even with a lawyer until January 22nd. And he is to be held at least until February 15th, is from what I've seen.
Yes, the only democracy.
Yes, the only democracy in the Middle East. That's right.
Yes.
Because he wouldn't leave the hospital when they ordered him to.
No due process.
Nope.
That place.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
You know this lady, Fiorella Isabel?
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a pretty long Substack article on her fiorellaisabel.substack.com about this ceasefire agreement and the fact that there is a nefarious catch. All right?
Please, Fee. Come on.
Yeah, well, she's going to lay it out. You've never known Fee to sugarcoat anything. We've known her a long time.
Other than snickerdoodles, sugarcoat those. Yeah.
Well, you're supposed to, but but she says it took 15 months of genocide for the U.S. and Israel to seriously consider a ceasefire deal to end the ethnic cleansing of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. According to Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman, who met individually with Israeli and Hamas negotiators, the deal will come into effect on Sunday. It's not yet fully official as Israel's security cabinet and government have to approve it by Thursday, which they did. And right now, Netanyahu has halted the process, which he has tried to do the entire time. Not surprisingly for many, but even if this does continue, it's not what's been put out in the media. What a shock, right? So tell us, Fee, what's happening? As many Western pundits and activists patted themselves on the back, and Palestinians rightfully celebrated a respite from the bombs, hunger, and violent death, Israeli airstrikes continued on Wednesday, killing, like we said, 77 in Gaza since this premature announcement. And while the plans were put in place during the Biden administration, Trump has also taken credit, much accolade, and it's become a jarring game as to who should be the most praised for the featured delusional tweets. Suggest that Trump be given a Nobel Prize, while the one vital question most have failed to ask remains, why now? So before she dives into that, let's look at the 3 phases and multiple causes in this plan. The first phase will last 42 days and focus on the release of 33, weird enough, I mean, that there's no significance to that number at all, 33 Israeli hostages. All right, where are we here? 33 Israeli hostages, including women, children, and men over the age of 50, living or dead. American hostages Keith Siegel and Sagui Dekel Chen are among 2 of the people to be released in the first phase. And we've seen video about 3 of them. All right. In exchange, during the 42-day second phase, all right, Israel would release 30 Palestinian prisoners for each civilian hostage and 50 for each female soldier, involving the declaration of sustainable calm. All right. Hamas would continue to free remaining male hostages, soldiers, or civilians in exchange for a yet-to-be-negotiated number of Palestinian prisoners and a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. Okay. According to the plan, there would also be a focus on humanitarian assistance for Gaza. We saw trucks starting to flow in today from the Raffi gate. A supposed end to fighting and displaced Palestinians would begin returning home as more aid enters the Strip. Again, all that means is that we're now getting back to pre-October 7th conditions. But their homes are completely leveled. And they have to basically start all over from scratch again.
And that's if this holds, which likelihood of that is slim.
So the third phase involves the exchange of bodies of deceased Israeli hostages for bodies of deceased Palestinian fighters. All right, let me find that again. I just lost it. Here we go. Right there. There's also an alleged implementation plan for a 3 to 5 year reconstruction of Gaza in exchange for it to be carried out under international supervision, reiterating that the crossings for movement in and out of the area would be reopened. To whom?
Right.
Would the Palestinians have right of return? Would they finally get passports? No. I'll bet you the answer is no. Sorry. Look, stop the bombs and bring it back to where it was. Okay, at a bare minimum. All right.
Yep.
There are also several clauses and parts to the agreement. Right. The first, as mentioned, calls for the complete withdrawal of the Israeli forces to the borders from all areas of the Gaza Strip. There should also be the opening of the Rafah crossing and the complete withdrawal from it. As of now, aid trucks have begun coming in already. Israel must also facilitate the travel of the wounded for treatment abroad. Basic, like, Geneva Convention stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So that's from Al Mayadeen. All right. Then continuing on, Israel must specifically allow the entry of 600 aid trucks per day under the humanitarian protocol sponsored by Qatar, and must facilitate the entry of 200,000 tents and 60,000 caravans for immediate shelter. I hope that there are 200,000 families that need those tents in a way. Like, I hope that's not too much. They need more than that, even, because there are still that many left. I mean, I'm worried. I mean, a large-scale prisoner exchange should occur, including the release of 1,000 prisoners from Gaza and hundreds of detainees serving lengthy sentences. That's 1,000 prisoners from Gaza held by Israel. All right. Not like 1,000 prisoners in Gaza, but who were from Gaza that were taken from Gaza to Israel that are being held in Israeli prisons right now. Okay. So that's next. Then that's the tense. Then the 8th clause is that there's a prisoner exchange, right? Additionally, Tel Aviv should release all women and children. That's a given. Why wouldn't they be doing that, right? They're also to gradually withdraw from the Netzarim corridor and the Philadelphia route, though this part has not been agreed upon, and the AP claims that Hamas gave up on forcing Israel out of the corridor. Who knows? We know the AP are stenographers for the State Department. A vital component in this requires displaced residents to be allowed to return to their homes, at least, with guaranteed freedom of movement throughout the Gaza Strip. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for getting us back to pre-October 7th conditions. She says that would actually be an improvement to conditions before October 7th if it is to be implemented. I guess. After months of fear, hostile aircraft must vacate Gaza's airspace for at least 8 to 10 hours daily. So basically, UK can continue their spy flights for 12 to 14 hours daily? Or
well, and 8 to 10. So, like, the rest of the time, they can be there, too. Like,
that's my point. So basically,
at night, they could bomb at night.
While they refuel. No, that's just spy flights. Right. That's overflights.
Okay.
All right.
Hostile aircraft must vacate Gaza's airspace. That's any. No?
Right.
Any aircraft? So.
Right. Finally, all Gaza hospitals.
Does that count?
Mm-hmm.
Does that count drones? Do those count?
Hostile aircraft. So, yes.
Right.
So I would say yes.
You think? So I doubt that's what's going to happen, but we'll see.
They may be allowed to be there during the day, but they can't be there at night as they sleep the way that they had been doing, dropping bombs on the houses as they sleep.
Yeah, the entire time. Right.
All right. Finally, this is a huge one. All hospitals in Gaza must be rehabilitated, and field hospitals, medical equipment, and surgical teams must be allowed entry.
Yeah.
I'll believe that when I see it. I sure hope that they allow for that, and that they allow for medical care and the documentation of just exactly how badly these people have been put through torture and the ringer, because that needs to be documented. So there is the description of exactly what we just talked about. All right. Here's what Fee says, is that my problem with this stems from the question I posed that a few are asking, why now? It's not my intention to take joy away from any stopping of the physical bombs and total extermination of Palestinians. Obviously, I, like many, welcome this. But I also must point out the reality that what's happened here is a distraction to pacify and delay the inevitable. Because this is a temporary ceasefire, according to everything we're seeing here.
According to Netanyahu himself, this is temporary.
For one, Israel has never respected any ceasefire and is under no obligation to do so because there's been zero consequence when it breaks its promises. That's absolutely right, Fee. No repercussions from the West or most of the non-aligned axis, the UN, or any international organization. Vocal condemnations do not stop bombs, and they've never halted Israel. 2, Tel Aviv's not even given us assurances. In fact, Netanyahu has threatened that Israel could use new military action to pressure Hamas in negotiations or could resume its violent military campaign. Which, didn't he say that? Yeah. Something that's likely to happen based on past behavior and the fact that there's little to stop them. And what's his name? Smotrich said again that they're moving forward. And Ben Gvir resigned, and yay, everybody celebrated for about 5 seconds and forgot about him. And he's replaced with another monster who's just as bad or worse. All right. But the plan still needing approval from Netanyahu's security cabinet and the full cabinet. I believe they got that. Smotrich is fuming, as are many Zionists on social media. But is that anything new? Yeah. Why rely on the tried and tired performance art from politicians and the Israeli brigade? We're not.
Mm-hmm.
She says now supposedly Qatar, the U.S., and Egypt would provide guarantees that all the agreements are followed through. And how are they going to do that? The problem is that the U.S. funds Israel.
Also, all those countries you just talked about definitely had a hand in Syria's fall recently. So, there's some questions.
Well, that's what she's about to say here. Is that the problem is that the U.S. funds Israel's expansion and genocide. Egypt is controlled by the U.S., and Israel is to the point of closing the Rafah crossing and being unable to do anything within these last 15 months. All right. And Qatar has deep relations with the West, as well at the expense of Palestine and the axis of resistance. Again, I want to refer back real quick to the Ynet story that we covered last April that Vanessa Beeley had come out with.
No one else did.
That Gaza 2035 plan that basically is this. They want to turn it into international oversight by several Muslim/Arab nations that are friendly to Israel, part of the Abraham Accords and or controlled by Israel and the U.S., all right, UK, like Egypt, all right, and eventually, but Israel will never give up control, ever. The plan is to never have Israel give up control, all right? So we're reading, again, this is Fiorella's article on fiorellaisabel.substack.com. Her take
was that the one where they had like the EV factories and stuff like that?
Yes.
They were trying to make a thing there?
Yes, they were going to
make like a whole architectural model.
Yep. That's the one where you didn't like the scale. You got mad at the scale.
Yeah, the scale was all fucked.
It was very funny. You're like, hold, I can't take the scale. It was very funny. I just watched that again recently.
Yeah, because like cars were the same size as like buildings. Yeah, they completely watch that. Anyway.
So again, she says none of the Gulf states, including Jordan, have done much to help Gaza, and they've all been seen as traitors by much of the resistance. How could this be a fair exchange? It wouldn't be. Trump's being hailed as the one who reached a deal, and he's coming in with a very specific plan to look like the hero that makes America great again. But it looks like this has been the plan for a while, meaning that the Biden administration, under whom this genocide began, set out to end it now for a reason. Trump can gloat all he wants, and influencers trying to make Elon bucks on Twitter, X, can post cute tweets raving about his accomplishments, but this was clearly set in motion now for several reasons. It's not a Biden versus Trump mentality here, but rather the fact that one is set to continue the next phase of the same imperialistic and genocidal U.S. American foreign policy. Yes. Yes, Fee. That's right. That's absolutely correct.
And it's definitely not Biden crap either, which is the minute you say it wasn't Trump, people, you think it was Biden? No, idiots.
No, but this administration,
pay attention.
But they had negotiated a deal basically this, A, 13 months ago, and then B, the framework of it was agreed upon in May, and they never pushed it through. Yeah. And then Trump sent somebody over and said, make this happen now or else. And look.
Yeah, I don't even know if that happened.
No, they did, but anytime that was on the table anytime anybody wanted to make that happen. Anytime. They just didn't want to make that happen. And that's what Fee's saying. All right. But for whatever reason, there are benefits. She's going to talk about that in a second. This brings her to Syria, which has now fallen with HTS terrorists, Israel and the U.S. All right. The three big architects of its demise, carving it up like a sack of meat at a butcher shop. Now Israel's free to continue its expansion into the region with little resistance, as Lebanon, which is fighting Tel Aviv itself and continues to pull bodies out of its own rubble from terrorist Zionist terror attacks like the pager attack, and then they drop bombs on an entire city block. And we've been hearing about all the stuff that's been happening in Beirut, all of southern Lebanon.
I think Inlakash announced today that Turkey was also annexing areas of Syria.
Turkey was? No surprise.
Yeah.
All right, scratchy. But now they're left open, and HTS terrorists are reportedly aiming to reach the country very soon. That's nice. The Lebanese election brought an anti-Hezbollah victor. No surprise there after Hezbollah got them bombed for defending Gaza and trying to align with Yemen and create a coalition that could potentially stop what Israel is doing. All right. Who wants a relationship with Syria's new regime? Of course they do. All right. That leaves the country vulnerable to Zionist expansion, the Greater Israel Project, as we've been talking about. So, worth noting that Hezbollah has never only relied on the political wing, and it will continue fighting, but it's going to be more difficult because the former Syria, which used to provide an ally zone, is now Western-controlled and terrorist-filled. All right, so they don't have the buffer zone. They don't have another country that might align with and support them, other than maybe Iran. That's it.
Right.
And now she's about to talk about how we're going to tie up Iran too. The obvious elephant in the room is that the incoming Trump administration has the most Zionist cabinet in our history. Right? People who think that Gaza should be flattened, told Netanyahu to finish the job, have I love Israel Twitter bios, I'm Israel Chai in their bio, right? And are not just Jewish, but Zionist, rabid, fundamental, disgusting fucking Zionists. I'll say it. She won't. She's a professional journalist. I will. All right. Who believe in Israel's right to all of the land in the region because of some 3,000-year-old bullshit that doesn't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention millions in Adelson money, which is the real reason behind it. All right. This doesn't magically go away because of a highly politically manipulated deal. That's naive at best, self-destructive if we're being honest. Yeah. Something else that barely any media have mentioned is that Trump has flagrantly admitted that he would leverage the ceasefire agreement as a way to advance the Abraham Accords, the U.S. brokered agreements from his first term that established normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations. As I mentioned above, it just so happens that two of the nations, being Qatar and, what was it, Egypt, and who's the third one? It's Qatar, Egypt, and who else is the third one? It is. Maybe it's the U.S. Well, I've heard it mentioned a couple ways. Yeah. Qatar is definitely part of the Abraham Accords. He's probably going to push Egypt into signing an Abraham Accord in some way. He wants to position himself as this uniter of the Middle East, as his son-in-law sells waterfront property in Gaza. And that's what he's about to say. If this moves forward without major setbacks, the critical question of who will govern Gaza will be answered, as what's left of Palestine and Arab countries will effectively give Israel a carte blanche on the region, which is what they laid out in that 2035 plan.
I read Wednesday that the possibilities there are going to be the PA and/or I think the UAE want to throw there.
That's Qatar.
Right. So...
All right.
Yeah.
So normalization means an Israeli takeover of full security guarantees for Israel, ensuring that the billions in reconstruction efforts works to usher in more territory for the Greater Israel Project. All right. They're not planning to reconstruct Gaza for Palestinians, but for them. Again, see Gaza 2035 plan. All right. And that's what I'm guessing she's going to quote here. But, This whole thing, guarantee of security for Israel, also means no Palestinian state ever. That's also part of the plan. Never give the Palestinians their own state. All right. Additionally, Trump proposed a gift bag of incentives. He's such a deal maker. That's a nice way to say it. Including removing sanctions on Pegasus. Are you kidding me? Why would you remove sanctions on Pegasus?
Why not?
And offering protection to IOF soldiers accused of war crimes. Hell no on that one. No, they got to go before The Hague, and they have to stay in Israel for the rest of their lives. Anywhere they go, they should be prosecuted and arrested. They committed war crimes, and they did it on fucking TikTok. And you're not shutting it down now. By the way, Max Sarge, I saw you said TikTok go bye-bye. Not anymore. They brought it back today. That's not happening now. Trump's going to save it. Ha, ha, ha. Trump's going to save it again. Just like he's saving this. They're all lining up to cater to his ego to get what they want. They figured out a long time ago. The way you manipulate this guy, cater to his ego. Put his name all over it. Thank him. Give him credit even when he doesn't deserve it. He loves it. So yes, Israel has lost political power, public support, many soldiers, its reputation is in the toilet, and they failed to achieve their goal of eliminating Hamas. They've also destroyed their own reputation on the global stage, too. The UN is a joke to them. Everybody's voted against them except for the 2 or 3 protectors. But they've also killed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, not received a single punishment, and instead garnered support from the West, with little condemnation from the non-aligned axis, save a few, under the excused mantle of Judaism for them and terrorism for Hamas. To blankly answer the earlier posed question, this is happening now because they needed Syria out, a weakened axis, and a weakened non-aligned axis for their required objectives. It's also no coincidence that we're seeing this all come with a change of face in the United States, while some long-planned foreign policy will still continue unabated. You mentioned the fact that Israel's been taking up more and more land in the occupied West Bank. We have, with the help of the Palestinian Authority, which he just talked about. It's only a matter of time before they fully control the entire thing, given the state of the region and the incoming logistics. Unless there's a miraculous united push to stop Israel and the U.S., which, looking at Syria, is unlikely. She's talking about Russia, if you haven't read between those lines. The only one that's really going to do it and push back is Russia, and they're tied up with Ukraine still. And they want to make a deal in Ukraine, so they're going to back the fuck off of this too and play ball. Plus, they'll offer them a little piece of this reconstructed zone just to keep them quiet. Watch.
Yeah.
They're going to participate in this crap. And maybe they'll even give their money to the Dagestanis, who then funnels it back to the Palestinians. Who knows? You know, Putin can be a benevolent king like that. I'm joking, of course. All right. He says, I keep mentioning Syria because what happened there is key. It's a linchpin for us all, especially analysts, to understand how our wishes do not reflect reality.
Yep.
Without Syria, things for the Axis have realistically become incredibly difficult and devastating. The major players appear to be building up to an era of normalization. Iran's President Pezeshkian isn't the only one in charge. Like we said, Iran, it all is going to hinge on Iran, all right? But his tendencies toward liberalism don't serve the resistance interests for the country or of the Axis and non-aligned Axis. All right? Axis is what she's talking about, Russia, China, Iran. The non-aligned Axis is the other countries, the Yemen, that aren't necessarily part of that coalition, I believe is what she's describing there. Am I correct? I think.
I do believe.
Iran is also vulnerable with the coming Trump administration. I would think so, especially because Elliot Abrams will likely be somewhere in the administration, as may be John Bolton, which is already vilified and accused it of everything from election interference to assassination attempts and bringing bombs across the border. Yep. All right.
Remember Khashoggi?
Oh, I do remember. He had his head chopped, if I remember correctly.
I do believe.
Thanks to Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, this is Fiorella's article. It goes. It's almost done. This is the last paragraph. A ceasefire has long been necessary, but it should come with full assurances for Palestinians and involve the resistance, not Washington and the Gulf states, which facilitated this genocide to occur for as long as it has. I don't think that's realistic to expect that as long as they facilitated it, that they're not going to be involved in when it's ending. They're going to have to basically decide when they want to end it. This agreement on Israel's terms and Western constructed doesn't mean an actual end to the extermination of Palestinians, but a delay of it, and this time with legal backing. Yeah, I agree with that. Even an establishment of a second-class Palestinian state, which they're not doing, does not equate to freedom, because those who run the show will not be Palestinians. Agreed there too, they also will not provide them with full electricity, water rights, travel rights, and everything else that every other human being in every other civilized country in the world has, which the Israelis are obligated legally to provide because they don't allow them right of return and they're occupying them. Oh yeah, that's part of the Geneva Convention too. Nobody talks about that. All right. In summary, it's too early to tell what this ceasefire actually is, but what I see coming with any ceasefire the U.S. and Israel agree to is the return to pre-October 7th treatment of Palestinians while continuing a slow death of Gaza and a quicker takeover of the entire region. Well, it's not. I mean, I've seen that full return of Gaza. I thought you said something about 67 square whatever kilometers where they're going to keep northern Gaza, basically. All right. She says nothing
for
as
a
I
buffer
stated.
Zone.
Right. Nothing as I stated happens coincidentally, and timing is everything. After Syria, nothing is the same, and I don't exaggerate the level of betrayal we are seeing on many facets of the non-aligned axis. More will be revealed in due time, I'm sure. But for now, understand that none of this is happening in isolation, and those who seek power will never give it up willingly. God, that's such a great piece by Fee, really. That's awesome. And this should
She
have
covered a lot of
more.
this in her tweets Wednesday in our ceasefire stuff, but she added to it. So
yeah, this had a lot of stuff from Wednesday. You know, and then I brought some other stuff here. Also, was that Robert Indelcash, after they announced it, that Netanyahu says he's not going to abide by it. So he also says he'll increase the number of soldiers in Philadelphia. That's nice. All right. And
yeah,
we're also going to go to Sanaa Saeed, formerly of Al Jazeera Plus, now independent on her own, views my own. All right. She says it's approaching Sunday in Gaza, the day the ceasefire is supposed to take effect. Between its announcement and now, Israel has killed hundreds of Palestinians, including entire families. There is such a profound pain in knowing that the last feeling hundreds of Palestinians experienced was hope, was relief. For those of us who have been bearing witness from afar, we will grieve alongside all those who remain. We will remain steadfast in the fight for their liberation. And I saw some photos and some videos of people coming home to literal like skeletons underneath rubble and some disgusting, horrible stuff. So while they're celebrating at the same time, they have to come home to some nightmarish stuff. Here is Vanessa sharing video that the Red Cross has told Al Arabiya that the condition of 3 female IOF hostages is good. The resistance took care of them while the Zionist regime was trying to kill them and slaughtering Palestinians. Compare this to the inhumane treatment, rape, torture, and ritual humiliation of Palestinians detained by Zionist sadists. And so this is.
Did you see that they literally sent them home with gift bags?
Yes, I did.
Like,
yep.
I don't know. I doubt you're going to see many of these. I think that was part of the ceasefire deal, was like filming the releases was like not a thing. So that you didn't see, like, you're not allowed to talk to the hostages.
Yeah, we didn't see any. And I actually, yeah, funny enough, I actually posted, have we started seeing any video of Palestinian hostages being released today? That was earlier this afternoon. And sure enough, somebody earlier then messaged, replied there and said, yes, they started doing that. Sarah Wilkinson posted this woman, Khalida Jarrar, released, significantly changed in appearance, reflecting the suffering and neglect of Palestinian captives.
Right.
So thank goodness she's out, and that this is all happening, at least for now. You're not going to see that in a lot of places, I'll tell you right now, a breakdown like that. And I'm proud to do that, but that's why we get demonetized on places like YouTube. You can hook us up. Those places are the easiest and take the least fees. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, and Substack. All right, at INNnewsletter.com.
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
So now we're going to get to Ali Abunimah. which I had to insert today because it made me really freaking mad. Originally, I wasn't going to talk about it. There's a lot of other people are talking about it, and this is how did we miss that. But there's also a lot of people that aren't as plugged into Twitter as we are and aren't as plugged into everything that's happening news-wise as we are on a daily basis. And they might have missed this quite easily because, of course, the corporate media is not speaking about it. Journalist arrested in Switzerland for criticizing Israel, and it's an Indie Media Award honoree. The managing editor and publisher of the Electronic Intifada, Ali Abunimah. All right. Arrested in Switzerland for...
You violated the law.
For criticizing Israel. What else is new? I thought Switzerland was neutral. The acclaimed journalist Ali Abunimah was arrested for opposing genocide. So we start with our friend the dissident. The trend of lawfare against journalists for doing accurate reporting on Israel's genocide in Gaza continues with the recent arrest of Palestinian-American journalist Ali Abunimah in Switzerland. According to his outlet, the Electronic Intifada, also an Indie Media Award honoree, Abunimah was arrested by the Swiss police ahead of a speaking event in Zurich on Saturday afternoon. The outlet went on to report that, quote, the arrest came one day after Abunimah arrived in Zurich for a speaking tour. When he arrived at Zurich airport on Friday, Abunimah was questioned by police for an hour before being allowed to enter the country. Abunimah's arrest appears to be a part of a growing backlash from Western governments against expressions of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Also, seems to be pretty obvious to me. While further information about the arrest has yet to come out, it was almost certainly over his reporting on Palestine. In July of last year, remember that Ali Abunimah, and we covered it on this show, was threatened with arrest by the German authorities for giving a talk on Palestine over a Zoom meeting in the country. And that's just
crazy.
Crazy.
What?
Right? If you were there in the beginning when we had the pre-show music and it scrolls through all the old thumbnails, he's on one of those thumbnails talking about how Germany is threatening to arrest Ali Abunimah. I guess they got Switzerland to do it for them.
Yeah.
If you remember, quote, about 2 hours before my scheduled talk on 26 July, I received via a lawyer in Germany a 15-page notice from government authorities in Berlin informing me that I'm prohibited from participating in the conference by any means, including online. The penalties include fines and up to 1 year in prison. And we know how fascist Germany's gone, so they'd be relishing the opportunity to do that to him, potentially. All right. As the dissident continues, this arrest fits a pattern in the Western world of states using lawfare to try to intimidate and silence journalists and activists from speaking out about Israel's genocide in Gaza. This campaign has been especially prevalent in the UK, as we were covering earlier tonight. Ali's colleague at the EI, Asa Winstanley, previously had his house raided and devices seized by British counterterrorism police in October of last year, again covered on this show. Wow, I'm proud of that. UK authorities also arrested and charged freelance journalist Richard Medhurst at London's Heathrow Airport over his reporting on Palestine. We updated that story earlier, that they want to extend his further punishment out till the middle of May and muzzling. UK authorities also charged pro-Palestine activist Richard Barnard for expressing an opinion that is supportive of a proscribed terrorist organization and raided the home of pro-Palestinian journalist and activist Sarah Wilkinson for content that she's posted online. In all of these cases, the UK weaponized Section 12 of the so-called Terrorism Act, which makes it a criminal offense to say something supportive of a proscribed terrorist organization. And because Hamas, who also is a political party and operates the health ministry in Gaza, or operated in Gaza, because Hamas and other Palestinian groups are labeled as terrorists by the UK government, they were able to weaponize this law to use it against the aforementioned journalists and activists. Given that Switzerland officially designated Hamas as a terrorist organization last year, similar laws are likely being weaponized in the case against Abunimah. Swiss media has reported that Security Director Mario Fair and I have more on this, denied Abunimah entry into Zurich, where he was scheduled to speak after absurdly labeling him an Islamist Jew hater, and even more absurdly claiming that he endangers Switzerland's internal or external security by speaking. Swiss media also reported that this designation came out in part based on the fact that Thomas Patsko called Abunimah, quote, a mouthpiece for Hamas. No, but okay. Patsko is a board member of Never Again Is Now, only for Israel, of course, only for the Jews in his mind, the Zionists. All right. A think tank that claims to be a nonprofit organization dedicated to combating anti-Semitism, quote unquote, and anti-Septicism.
So it's similar to the ADL, probably dog shit.
But which is clearly a front for the state of Israel. Yes. All right.
Never again, unless it's anybody else.
Again, the website repeats numerous dubious Zionist talking points, including calling the West Bank Judea and Samaria, as I talked about with Elise Stefanik, and claiming that Jews were removed from Gaza in 2005 when Israel withdrew to provide the Palestinian leadership with an opportunity to autonomously govern. That's the story that my wife constantly comes back to me with. I'm going to be perfectly personal and honest with you. That they left them greenhouses and that Palestinians tore them down and turned them into military tunnels. I mean, she believes all the bullshit Hasbro. I don't know how to get her to stop buying it, but maybe someday she'll believe it when she sees all the destruction.
Eventually, there won't be a choice, you know.
The group also adopts the IHRA detention of anti-Semitism, or definition, not detention, but definition of anti-Semitism, which falsely includes statements such as comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, while they occupy people, imprison them, and exterminate them. I can't imagine why anyone would compare them to Nazis. And claiming the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor when they maintain second-class citizens against Palestinians, even the ones that they consider to be quote-unquote Israeli citizens, but have no real voting rights. That's examples of anti-Semitism. They certainly can't serve in the Knesset either. All right.
Anti-Semitic.
Not at least to a majority.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that these laws are a clear violation of free speech principles, because they're, again, the only democracy in the Middle East, right? All right. The hypocrisy of them is outrageous. Because if Hamas are terrorists, then the Israeli government, which just spent the last year slaughtering Palestinians in Gaza, 70% of whom are women and children, and 90% of whom were civilians, certainly are at that point, wouldn't they be? Well, that's Brian Mast thinks that there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. We know that. What an asshole he is. How we have a North Carolina congressperson who served in the IDF and wears his IDF uniform into Congress of a foreign service is beyond disgraceful. All right. When they're literally committing mass murder, not even allegedly, they're doing it. I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for YouTube. Fuck YouTube. Yet there are no laws in any of these countries against supporting Israel's bombardment of the people of Gaza, something human rights organizations from HRW and Amnesty International have called a genocide, in which the ICC has called crimes against humanity and war crimes. Also that Francesca Albanese from the UN, who was the UN rapporteur on genocide, designated it genocide. It's genocide. Swiss mainstream media has tried to justify the arrest of Abunimah by listing factual statements he's made. The Swiss mainstream media outlet NZZ tried to back up the claims that he was an Islamist Jew hater, on quote unquote, by citing him, saying that, quote, there is no credible evidence of a single rape on October 7th, which is something that even the mainstream Times of London has admitted, and for saying, quote, Israel killed its own people on October 7th, something that's been extensively documented in everything from the Israeli newspaper Haaretz to the Australian state broadcaster ABC News. The fact that Ali Abunimah is an American-born citizen arrested by a foreign government over his reporting should cause an international scandal similar to that of Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter who was charged by Russian authorities over his journalism on the Ukraine war, right? But of course, we don't get that. Unfortunately, the principles of a free press are often ignored on the issue of Palestine, meaning that the mainstream media and the American government will likely stay silent over this case. Yeah. So we've got Ali Abunimah now locked up. And now we've got Gen X girl, who I will be having a conversation with on Wednesday, hopefully. We'll be recording and putting out Saturday night. Or Saturday morning via podcast, at least. The Swiss government has arrested Ali Abunimah. He was invited to speak in Zurich. This is Western democracy held captive by Israel. If you watched The Lobby, which was the groundbreaking expose on Israel, on the Israel lobby, the voice narrating the documentary is Ali Abunimah. Solidarity with Ali, obviously. Journalism is not a crime. Beyond Headlines, follow them if you haven't already at headline_beyond. All right. Ali Abunimah was arrested by Swiss police ahead of speaking event in Zurich. He's currently being detained with access to legal counsel. The arrest happened after he arrived for a speaking tour. So they let him in only to arrest him later. Nice. Independent journalist Dimitri Lascaris, affiliated with the Canada Files, as well as some other folks that we know, good peeps. No one has done better reporting on Israel's genocide than Ali Abunimah and the EI team. That's why Ali has been targeted by the Swiss police. Again, People's Dispatch expressing solidarity as well. All right, providing consistent and accurate reporting.
Hat in the ring on this one.
Now, John McAvoy, who we talked about earlier, he's now running Declassified UK, right? You can follow him at John J. McAvoy, MCEVOY _2 on Twitter. Right. It turns out that Mario Fair,
John McAvoy,
being John McAvoy, all right. It turns out that Mario Fair, the security chief in Zurich, where journalist Ali Abunimah was arrested, has spoken at pro-Israel rallies and called for pro-Palestine demos to be banned. Right there. Current president of the canton of Zurich, alongside the Jewish community, the president of the Jewish community of Zurich. Why don't you as cantonal security director intervene? Quote, I have strongly advised the responsible municipal security officer not to authorize any more Palestine demonstrations in the current dangerous situation. Such demonstrations can quickly escalate and are difficult to control. Yes, especially when they get infiltrated by Zionists and attackers. All right? Yeah. The municipalities in the canton of Zurich, just like happened in Amsterdam with the soccer hooligans. All right? The municipalities in the canton of Zurich that are responsible for issuing permits for demonstrations should be aware of their responsibility. So you've got a Zionist is the reason why he was arrested. Now today, Ahmed Eldin, all right, who's another independent journalist, all right, Francesca, and you can see, I think that's Sanaa Saeed, some other people there. Ali remains detained arbitrarily in Zurich because immigration officers responsible for deportation don't work until Monday. And because the Zionist lobby, he's stuck there for the weekend.
Nice.
And the Zionist lobby is growing more powerful in Switzerland. Okay. So this is a 20-minute conversation about that.
Planes, trains, and automobiles, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. And then I wanted to finish by providing a link to a petition that Asa Winstanley posted for change.org to free and release
below, I'm sure.
I'm going to put it in the chats everywhere, but to release Ali Abunimah immediately, of course, because journalism is not a crime, as we have scrolling There's only one hashtag that goes across that ticker, and it's journalism is not a crime. All right. It started with Julian Assange. Oh, yeah. First they came for Assange. Didn't we say that? And they criminalized journalism and they criminalized, publishing classified material. It's been a fun time, let me tell you. Independent journalism is under assault. All right. And getting truth from sources that are not corrupted by the Zionist lobby, by advertisers, by anyone who can be influenced by anything other than seeking out exactly what the hell happened from the people that are on the ground that it happened to. That's who we're trying to get the story from first, right? From the people themselves. And I think that's different for most. And I'm proud of that. But yes, we are heavily censored. We are heavily suppressed. That is why I love the 27 of you here on YouTube and the 5 that are watching right now over on Indie INN channel. All right. And the 71 watching over on, who's over there? Oh, yeah, over on Elon's magical machine. But yeah, all these amazing people have already supported our network, tipping us, hooking us up with PayPal, Ko-fi, Cash App, a Substack membership, something to help us keep the lights on, keep the restream going, keep the Canva going so that we can make all these graphics and thumbnails and video shorts and clips. We have a new outro tonight that I'm going to debut. Really excited about that. That'd be nice. So Cash App, $, Indie News Network, INDIE. You see it down there at the ticker. You can get to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. That shows up in the chat. Or you can !donate. Typing that in the chat will bring up the link to do that as well.
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
Some of the Google Maps have come out about Gaza. And I don't know if you've seen these, but they're horrific. And I'm sorry to do this. This is what Biden officials, al-Rad, called a limited operation in Rafah. The magnitude of their lies becomes clearer every day. I'm going to play this. This comes from UNRWA. This is drone footage. It's 1:25 of overhead of Rafah. Now, there was another video that's circulating around that Assal had put up that has Matthew Miller, Count Smirkula, speaking over this, talking about how it would be a limited operation. This is, oh my God.
I mean, that's just miles of destruction. And those people returning, right?
Right. Remember that Biden said that they weren't going to do a full bombing into Rafah.
Yeah, they wouldn't carpet bomb. That's like Dresden is carpet bombing. Okay. You know, as Jesus enters on his donkey.
No cars, obviously. They bombed all the cars. All the vehicles are destroyed. Yeah. You had a cart with a horse. I can't even imagine the horse survived.
I don't even think that was a horse.
Might have been a donkey.
I think that was a donkey. Yeah.
UN vehicles bombed out. Buildings destroyed. Still got 15 more seconds to see in this destruction, God. But I got, it gets worse. Amazingly enough.
I bet it does.
I got more. Here's the next thing. Google Earth has started to update its satellite images of Gaza, and the results are both devastating and undeniable. Shout out to My Name is Jennifer and Shit You Should Care About.
How long did that take you? You know, they've been avoiding doing that for a minute, I'm betting.
But wait, that was the before. You know? Ready for the after?
Yep.
Wait, where'd it go?
You gotta click the arrow. There you go. Yeah, nice.
It's gone.
Just nothing left.
Here's a before. You see the little kind of arrowhead shape?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gone.
The field's not even there anymore.
Gone.
So
here's another sprawling set of buildings, apartments, stores. Ready?
Yep.
Gone.
Mm-hmm. Literally crater filled.
No signs of life. But sure, it wasn't a genocide, right?
Nope.
And here's another one. Yes, folks, this is real. I just took this screenshot myself. Pull up Beit Hanun in Google Maps and see this for yourself. Though it seems that likely Google will end up blurring this image at some point. Ready for this one?
Yep.
Look down there.
Mm-hmm. This is Israeli bulldozers doing shit.
They fucking bulldozed a Star of David road tracked into the town that is completely leveled to nothing. Those probably used to be buildings and houses that are now leveled to the ground.
The last Nazis made you wear that, you know. These Nazis just put it in your field.
That's the main road. The headline of the week comes from Indie Media Award honoree Mondo Weiss. And it stopped me in my tracks. And the headline says, quote, I'm looking through the skulls to find my sons. Palestinians dig through Gaza's rubble to search for their missing loved ones. This is a really long article by Tariq Hajjaj. I'm not going to go through it. This is Rafah again, January 23rd, 2024. Last year.
Yeah.
It's even worse now.
Yeah, they've been doing that from the beginning of this conflict.
All right.
So
here's more. Civil defense teams collect remains and then try to identify them from those remains without any technology, without any power, without.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to show you some of the pictures. I mean, poor Mondo Weiss. Who else is giving you reporting like this?
Mm-hmm.
This is the remains of nearly 50 bodies from under the rubble of homes. Again, 2024, Khan Yunis, early January. This is a year ago. APA images. Again, these are all the stories of the people that are coming home. My sons were bombed in a place I know well, and I went to look for them there, but I don't think their bodies remained throughout the war. Maybe the dogs and cats dragged them to different places. Maybe the Israeli army removed them with bulldozers and tanks. Dozens of scenarios in his head. Can you imagine? You can't even find the remains of your children. Fuck these guys so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Corbett, another Indie Media Award honoree from Common Dreams, also 2022 honoree for Best Outlet, although they have gone really shit libby and TDSy lately. This was a good article and I wanted to bring it. They also had a Jake Johnson article about upward mobility, upward wealth transfer of $2 trillion last year. All right, where they got $2 trillion wealthier, the wealthiest. But this one, a pattern of genocide. Of course, we know, but here's another report detailing Israel's systematic destruction of the Gaza health system specifically. And this is also, by the way, what they're doing, what they did in Lebanon, and what they're probably now going to do in Syria, which is attack all the healthcare workers and the doctors so they can't help the sick. And the entire country ends up breaking down into squalor. So this is a new report from, called The Systematic Destruction of Gaza's Healthcare System, a Pattern of Genocide. Builds on previous publications, including from UN entities and testimonies from medical professionals who've worked in Gaza since Israel launched October 7th, in the wake of October 7th, their retaliation, quote unquote. No, it's their massacre that they used October 7th as an excuse for 16 months to kill women and children every day and drop U.S. bombs. All right. Just disgraceful. The report argues that Israel's systematic campaign against Gaza's healthcare infrastructure as a whole is exemplified by the targeted destruction of Al-Shifa Hospital, which is the largest hospital in the occupied Palestinian territory and, quote, older than Israel itself. It also addresses all the other hospital attacks that happened, as well as on healthcare workers, ambulances, aid relief workers, and on the aid trucks that were coming in that had medical supplies. The fact that there was no anesthesia left to operate, that certain people were left to operate on their children without anesthesia, should never be forgotten and allowed to be forgiven, ever. Continuing Israel's theme of war crimes, ongoing war crimes, we also have an update from Eva Bartlett on Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, and it's not a good one, unfortunately. It's not, thankfully, it's not the worst news yet, but, this was the other day on January 24th. She wrote an article for RT on Gaza's beloved Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, abducted by the Israeli army in late December. People around the world are rightly very concerned about his well-being and that he not be tortured to death by the Israeli army, as they've already done to 3 Palestinian doctors from Gaza last year. Now, we covered this a couple weeks ago. All the medical professionals from around the world that were holding up the hashtag free Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya.
Yep.
He, last we heard, was transferred to the worst prison there and was potentially being tortured. But we heard that from third hand from someone who was also a prisoner there, maybe, but also through Israel. So I don't know what I believe when it comes to that. But I wanted to give a shout out to Eva, who is keeping this alive. And I wanted to follow up that he is still missing, and they have ruled him as basically disappeared until at least February 15th and not even allowed to speak to counsel for refusing to leave the hospital when the IDF ordered him to, and refusing to leave his patients. Eva, by the way, is an Indie Media Award honoree inaugural class. I want to bring another one, Ricky Hale, over at Council State Media, 2024 honoree for Best Outlet. One of them. All right. Gaza's double standards show everything we were told about Western democracy is and was a lie. We are seeing a massive effort to suppress the truth and quell dissent. Like we just saw in Switzerland even. It's not even stretching. It's even extending beyond the U.S. and Great Britain and Israel, where they're trying to put a lid on it. Everywhere else around the world, they know the truth. And that's why they've all come to the UN and raised their hands to stop the genocide and call it a genocide and tell Israel to stop. What Ricky says is, if you want to know how institutional racism works, consider that Harvard Medical School canceled a class in which its students would have met with patients from Gaza. The excuse was given that the meeting would have been biased towards the victims of genocide because it would have been one-sided.
God forbid we're biased towards the victims of genocide. God forbid.
Well, if they were Jewish, it would have. Now, here's the thing. In order to not be one-sided, The class would have had to let Israelis explain why they really wanted to maim those Palestinians. Instead, Harvard decided it was best for its students to simply not learn about wartime healthcare. They just had to accept being less educated to avoid upsetting Zionists. In an email from medical school dean George O. Daly, class of 82, read, quote, "We are committed to exploring the most educationally rigorous means to teach and learn about the impact of war on the delivery of health care and on the health of affected populations, and to do so in a way that does not divide members of our community who hold disparate views." Huh? After the class was canceled, ready for this, the organizers planned to host the event as a student group, but they weren't allowed to do that either. What? Yeah. Just imagine telling a student group they weren't allowed to meet with Israeli patients. It would never happen, and anyone who suggested it would probably be fired. Given that Harvard admitted the reason for dropping the class was to avoid polarizing the school's affiliates, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest they have Zionist backers, like Bill Ackman.
Yeah.
They probably own shares in the arms manufacturers supplying the IDF too. Remember that Jeffrey Epstein gave massive endowments to Harvard as well. Funded tons of science programs there. In case you didn't know, centrism means finding a middle ground between the victims and the perpetrators of a Holocaust. Inclusivity means pretending the concerns of both sides are equally valid, then silencing the victims so no one hears their concerns. That almost sounds like a Laura Kay line, so I'm not going to out Ricky there, but if the problem was the panel had only included Palestinian patients and not Israelis, they could have had a panel that's representative of the casualty rate in this war, quote unquote. That would mean about 1,000 Palestinians for every Israeli. We could let that one Israeli tell us that the other 1,000 panelists deserve to be maimed, and we could call them anti-Semites and if they disagreed. I mean, that's just how we operate in the West now, I guess. That's how Piers Morgan operates, at least. The Harvard story is just one example of the effort the West is going to in order to suppress awareness of its war crimes in Gaza. Backflips. Over in the UK, things are somehow getting even worse. As we reported earlier, the British state has been smearing anti-genocide protesters, so it has an excuse to shut down their marches. One such example was a protest outside the BBC, which was stopped due to the police's abuse of the Public Order Act. As we said earlier, the protest was planned in response to the BBC's shocking coverage, Gaza coverage, which has been repeatedly called out by whistleblowers like Owen Jones. Police approved the protest to take place before Christmas, only to ban it due to non-existent quote-unquote security concerns. Weird. They rescheduled the protest for January 18th, only to backtrack because the synagogue was located, like I said, about a mile away from the march route. The route was then reversed, and the march was delayed to avoid clashing with the Sabbath service, but even that wasn't enough. Police decided the only way to protect the synagogue was to stop protesters going near the BBC?
Yes.
Okay.
Can't have that.
Police cordoned off the road so protesters went as far as they were allowed to go, and in a shocking act of terrorism, they laid flowers, like I said, among them Jeremy Corbyn. And, oh, look, there he is right there. Where's Jeremy? Where's Waldo?
Terror. Terrorism. Terrorist.
I should have had this earlier. Police ushered the protesters into Trafalgar Square and kettled them in, then selectively arrested whomever they wanted. Their prize targets were 2 elected members of parliament, John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn again issued the following statement on Twitter, which has been backed up by journalists, eyewitnesses, and camera footage. Quote, "I was part of a delegation of speakers." Again, we read this earlier. Metropolitan Police falsely accused him and John McDonnell of breaching the cordon, which they had not, after ushering them through, and they interviewed them under caution. The fear is that they will now use the Public Order Act to ban them from future protests, something they've done to other protesters, which we read from the guy who spoke to WSWS anonymously the other day. The claim was that protesters somehow posed a threat to a synagogue that was more than a mile away. The truth is that police ushered Corbyn and McDonald through the cordon to set them up. It reminds me of the time Starmer set up Corbyn by helping him word a statement and then suspended him for making that statement. British politics is so unbelievably despicable. Jeremy Corbyn, of course, is the former leader of the opposition, and in 2017, he came within 2,000 votes of becoming prime minister. If he had won, we would not have spent the past 15 months supporting genocide. I don't think he would have been prime minister this long from 2017 to 2022 or 2024, but okay. The establishment is trying to punish Corbyn for being on the right side of history, just like he was all those years ago when he spoke so powerfully against the invasion of Iraq. If the British establishment hates one thing more than anything else, it's peacemakers that call out their lying and their warmongering. It's worth mentioning the protest ban was opposed by more than 1,000 Jews, including rabbis, but clearly they were the wrong kind of Jews and should be ignored. Again, very Laura-esque. I feel like she had a hand in writing this. Pathetically, the Met argued in a statement that they act without fear or favor, as though they're boldly standing up for the little guy against the powerful when they're doing the exact opposite. Ask yourself, the last time police rounded up Zionists for cheering on Israeli war crimes. Because that happens. You would think, given that we're a bastion of free speech and democratic values, the British press would be outraged by this blatant attack on our freedoms. Instead, they've been cheering it on.
Thanks, Sean.
Because everything we've been told about Western democracy is a lie. What a shock. Police have been abusing the Public Order Act to ban people from attending future marches because the most important thing during genocide is that you'd stop people speaking out against it, right? Well, if you're the U.S. government, if you're the British government, the government's strategy is to quell all dissent because despite its best propaganda efforts, it has failed to win over the public. Disturbingly, police are now arresting the anti-genocide candidates who stood against Labour at the last election. This also follows a spate of arrests of anti-genocide journalists, and if you're still struggling to understand why our freedom-loving democracy would act in such an authoritarian manner, this might help. And again, talking about the Ministry of Defense meeting with the Israeli guy, Declassified UK confronted the soldiers, got that whole John McAvoy thing in it there that we talked about earlier. If we had a functioning press in the UK, they would ask the questions that Alex Morris asked, but the reality is that if any journalist did, they'd be fired. While it would be fine to speak to, say, a Russian general in this way, you simply aren't allowed to speak to an Israeli this way. You're supposed to show them deference. There's now every chance that Alex Morris will be harassed by British police for doing journalism. I would not at all be surprised if his home is raided in the near future, because that's just where we are. It's fucking terrifying. And I hope that doesn't happen. But support Ricky, support Council of State Media. Love these guys. Give them a shout out, big shout out. They do great work. All right. They have the anti-imperialist nexus. Their podcast, Socialist Voices, reads the articles right there. Normal Island News is part of Council of State Media. You know, I adore Laura Kay. She's one of my favorites also. Yeah, awesome people. Awesome outlet. Big fan. Another awesome outlet that I'm a big fan of is this one, Indie News Network, INN, of course. Well, I'm co-founder, so I would be. But all these people are fans too, so thank you so much. That's our Wall of Fame. They're our supporters.
Thank you all.
Thank you to Sean, again, third night in a row, stepping up, helping us out. All right, $20.
Appreciate you for wasting all your money on us.
On the co-fees, supporting the media you want to see, which is what that banner says. We're already up to 10% of our $2,000 goal. We'd like to raise $2,000 to pay off all of our expenses for the year. Then we can start to do fun stuff like send Jesse Jet to the Third Eye Carnival and maybe some stuff on the ground. Big Mad Crab likes to go to D.C. and to New York City to do stuff. We can certainly hang out and do that stuff. So
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
A week ago, there was a big protest in London, in Trafalgar Square, and the cops did some shit, and they kettled some people, and they arrested some people.
Describe kettling for the people who don't know.
Well, we're going to talk about. We have an article that's going to explain exactly what kettling is. Which is putting a bunch of people into an area, cordoning them off, and then starting to arrest people at random, or all of them, and letting only one person out at a time, and going through IDs, or interrogating each person as they leave potentially.
Confinement by police of a group of demonstrators or protesters in a small area.
Okay, and those kettled included one Jeremy Corbyn. So we're going to hear from him in a second. All right.
Jeremy Corbyn.
All right. So this is what happened here. According to the British Pakistani Index, a record 77 arrests were made at today's pro-Palestinian protest in London, the highest number across 23 demonstrations since last October, or October 2023, of course. Now we're in 2025. Police blocked march plans near the BBC, citing proximity to a synagogue, sparking clashes in Trafalgar Square. Now, what's really interesting about this is, and we're going to learn a little bit more from somebody, that the synagogue was a mile from the BBC office. So it's not like there was anywhere close. All right. It was bullshit. So this is all the piggies lining up there. But look at that. All right. And there were, and again, I got another tweet here, and it is from the man himself, Jeremy Corbyn. All right. Now, what had happened was Metro Police said that the group that forced its way through the police line is now held at the northwest corner of Trafalgar Square. Anyone in that group should now disperse and leave the area, except they kettled it. Anyone remaining in breach of the conditions or inciting further breaches will be arrested. 3.7 million views. Look at the size of this image, okay? All of these protesters from the police camera. Now, again, Jeremy Corbyn chimes in, and this is a long thread for the Metro Police about protests. This was not an accurate description of events at all. What a surprise. I was part of a delegation of speakers who wished to peacefully carry and lay flowers in memory of children in Gaza who had been killed. What a monster. This was facilitated by the police. They never said that. We didn't force our way through. When we reached Trafalgar Square, we informed police that we would go no further, lay down flowers, and disperse. At that point, the chief steward of the march, Chris Nynam, who is a legendary activist, was arrested. We then turned back and dispersed. I urged the police to release all body cam footage and retract its misleading account of events. Yeah, that didn't happen. What a surprise. All right. So the reason why I even brought this at all, on top of the fact that it's further evidence that London is going fasci, which is the reason why we started talking about this segment, is that I'm hearing that loud, by the way. Arrested Gaza protester.
Hearing what loud? They're not done anything.
Me feeding back, but from your computer.
Okay.
Maybe? But arrested Gaza protesters.
Okay.
You good?
I think. I don't know.
Okay. I hope so. Arrested Gaza protester speaks to the World Socialist website, which you can't really see because it's blocked or, it's black on black text. They spoke to the WSWS or the WWE, whichever you want to prefer, about the London police crackdown. What happened there? And it's all anonymous, by the way. All right. And coming from an anonymous guy, I can kind of understand the reason why, especially given Section 12 and everything else that's happening there. So, WSWS spoke with one of the 77 people arrested as part of the anti-democratic police crackdown on Sunday's national Gaza protests in London. It could have been Jeremy Corbyn, for all we know. They're referred to as X to allow them to speak more freely about the events on the day. Arriving early, X got to Whitehall on the corner by the Houses of Parliament, and there were already at least 100 police officers lined up ready for action. I got to Downing Street. There was a big crowd of protesters. Just to the right of Downing Street entrance, that's where their parliament, where the prime minister resides or whatever, where his office is. There were barriers already being put up around them. That's these. All right. And you can see like barriers of cops too.
Right.
Right. I was talking to someone and 10 minutes later, by the time I realized we'd essentially been kettled, contained in an area, already in that little corner, except for a filter in and out, pretty much one by one. So already people were starting to get in quite a lot of distress, especially the older protesters, because they'd never been in that situation. And then later on that day, those barriers were dismantled and then they'd be put up somewhere else. So it felt like the police were completely controlling the situation, which, of course, they were. Wherever people went, from the top of Whitehall looking down, you could see that they were basically trying to separate the groups, as would be their normal procedure. When the rally started, it seemed to be a bit more open. There seemed to be fewer barriers, but there were already arrests happening. There were the blue vest coppers everywhere. There were general police everywhere. There were police right at the top of Whitehall, already closing it off, so you couldn't get to Trafalgar Square. So we were contained. In all the side streets were police vans at the end of them. So, yeah, you're trapped now. All right? You went there to lay flowers, and now all of a sudden the cops have got you surrounded. Pointing out a change in how the protesters have been policed, X said, quote, since the summer of the election in 2024, the police presence has massively increased. They banned us from congregating on the green outside the House of Commons. That was as soon as Sir Keir Starmer became prime minister. All right. Since Starmer got into power, the police have changed every single route. Well, we know why. Because he's ranked as the 49th most influential person in Zionism, because he sleeps next to someone who is very influential, and he is the prime minister.
Yep.
So this person anonymously added that the Israeli counter-protest was literally on Whitehall, but just on a side street. All right. On protests recently, they've been placing them closer and closer to pro-Palestinian marches. That's become a theme since Starmer got into power. That was never the case before. So there's that. All right. And then they continued on Saturday's events. All right. When the rally started, it was really cold. It was like 2 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. It was just above freezing. So a lot of people were struggling to be still. I was trying to keep warm by sort of moving about and walking between various groups and things like that. I started to move away from the rally about around the time, just after, Labour MP Aspana Begum spoke. All right. I think it was just to see what else was going on. So this person was there. They get arrested. I walked up towards Trafalgar Square. and there was a big group of pro-Palestinian protesters chanting in the line in police vans. There were lots of us. There were lots of videoing of us. Okay, but that's been another feature. So many undercover videoings, police infiltration, things like that going on. Right?
Yeah.
So soon afterwards, everyone's sort of forming into a kind of march look. And right at the very front were the Holocaust survivors, or the relations of Holocaust survivors, which were basically people in their 80s. They were elderly people. And just as they started to move forward, the police formed a cordon, but it was quite a flimsy one, if you like. We were on the other side of that, and because there was a gap, they were filtering people one by one. Me and the other protesters were shouting to go through the gap because we're worried about these elderly protesters because they just look terrified. It was really upsetting to see that. Of all the things that happened that day, that was one of the worst things. So literally they had like Holocaust survivors and family of Holocaust survivors there that were, kind of in support of stop the genocide and stop arming Israel and stop funding all of it and stand up against it. Vote against it in the UN if you have to, instead of abstaining, which I believe they've been doing the whole time, right? I don't know if they actually voted for genocide because nobody there seems to want to do so.
Yeah.
So he said he saw a woman, or this person said they saw a woman who must have been in her 70s get kind of manhandled away from the police. She tried to get through and she was pushed back. He had to move. They had to move away because they were starting to get really angry and a bit mouthy. Nothing dodgy, but saying this is completely unnecessary. Eventually, the police let them through. This was kind of halfway along Whitehall, so then the march was carried on. By which point, I'd moved away because I was getting too upset, so I moved away from it. Right, so here's where it gets to. Later on, some protesters had got to Trafalgar Square. I thought maybe you can go through now. Maybe they're not going to arrest people. It's really confusing, so I followed. I went up towards Trafalgar Square. I just walked through. I must have been about 10 meters behind, maybe a bit more, behind the members of Parliament, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, and a lot who had to get through. All right?
Yeah.
And it was really squished. It was really quite worrying, a bit claustrophobic and everything. It was completely crammed. It's like being in a mosh pit, kind of. You just get pushed. People are going up there, realizing they couldn't get anywhere, and then turning around and coming back. So they're just trying to go against the march, and people are getting shuffled. I remember they said that about somebody. Jostled. They said that about Shireen's coffin, that it was jostled.
Coffin.
I'll never forget that.
I mean, people have died in crowds like this by it being compressed, so...
Stampeded. Oh, yeah.
Probably not the best thing, yeah.
It was really turning into a crush, starting to feel quite dangerous. I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere. They were telling people to sit down. I thought, we're sitting ducks here. I was told to move and literally arrested 30 seconds later. And I think even if I had moved away and followed the policeman's instructions to leave Trafalgar Square, I would have been kettled anyway. A lot of people overheard the police saying we were just going to arrest everyone anyway. What a shock. All right, this person said that they had felt the situation had been completely pre-orchestrated, and they had said go through, and I went through. That's according to what Corbyn said, too, that this was with the coordination and approval from the London Metro Police, and then they changed their tune after everybody was in there. There were no police stopping me to get on.
That was the tune from the start, and they just let them do it anyway.
Right. Maybe they're not arresting people. Maybe they've allowed us to protest, only to find out that it was all part of the trap, which included their own members of Parliament. That's insane. Like,
it really is.
Their own lawmakers are saying, yeah, this is wrong and we need to do something about this, and I support these people, and they're getting arrested too. Okay. Spending 19 hours in a cell, this person had to ask 7 times before they got legally allowed a phone call at 10:40 p.m., by which time that person was asleep and had to, that person and the person arrested had to leave a voicemail. They also had to ask for toilet paper 4 times before getting any. That's disgusting. And debasing and done intentionally to try to, remove people's humanity and make them kind of beg for the basics. Disgusting. What pigs do. All right.
Disgusting.
When they put me in and I said, well, can I have my calls, like to my solicitor, my personal call? They were like, we're just about to do handover. So it'll be about 45 minutes. It was constantly, in about a half hour. It was like that the whole time for 19 hours. All right. There's been nothing in writing about what I'm charged with, of course. There's some confusion. These are things that have only been told to me verbally at the time of my arrest, released on bail. So something's written somewhere. All right. I've got to return for an interview in about a month's time. And I'm banned from attending any protest within the Greater London Ring Road until I've had my interview. And this is the big thing right here.
Which is, I just don't, how do they even justify that?
This is what they've been doing to the journalists. This is what they've been doing to the activists. They've been muzzling them. They've been banning them. They've been preventing them from speaking out and gathering groups to speak out on behalf of the Palestinian people who are being exterminated systematically.
And how do the police, individual police, I get that your bureaucracy is fucked, but individuals, I don't know how you're letting this happen.
Well, they were selected, remember.
You're doing their dirty work. You can not.
Remember that they were selected and why. They went through a strict vetting process. Okay, summing it all up, it was terrifying and humiliating, and it's a massive spanner in the works for people like me who are renting, who are in precarious employment or non-employment or things like that. It's a life changer for us. And I think one of the upsetting things, for example, none of the media really mentioned the 77 arrested. They just talked about the chief stewards, which is Chris and Corbyn and the members of parliament. There's 70 plus people like myself who don't have a lot of money or political weight or any of the gravitas and are at risk of just being forgotten about. People are going to get evicted. People are going to lose their jobs when they don't have very much already. And within a half hour of being in that cell, they were more determined than ever that in their life to do it again. I'll fucking do it again. Right.
I'd like to look into free speech laws in the UK. I know there have to be something,
Well, not like here.
I know that they don't. Yes, but
obviously
there still has to be some parallels that you should be able to use to fight this. But
all right, I was remembering all the time. It's about Gaza. It's about them. The reason I go to the London ones rather than my local ones is because they're the ones that get on TV. And the most important thing is not forgetting about it, not letting it go under the radar. We're not stopping. Fuck yeah. But neither are the London police, unfortunately. All right. Journalism is not a crime. Once again, Richard Medhurst has been muzzled since August. He was arrested at Heathrow Airport, as you can see here, under the Terrorism Act, Section 12, because of his reporting. All right. He has been silenced from doing further reporting about Gaza. And, if he says that he supports any organization that they deem to be terrorist, he's then also a terrorist. So he has to be very careful about how he reports and what he says and the like. But what he says here, just yesterday, I noticed a tweet last night. The police are again seeking to extend their terrorism, quote unquote, investigation against me by another 3 months until May 2025 at least, which means that he's further muzzled until then. Because they can keep kicking this can down the road and keep him effectively silenced for as long as they want until they dismiss the investigation, complete their investigation, arrest him because they have collected XYZ. But remember, the reason why all of this is happening is because he won't unlock his phone for them and they can't get into it, allegedly.
Yeah.
or they can at least force him to willingly unlock it for them, which may be exactly the reason why they're punishing him, to set an example to everybody else who won't do that. All right. So that's Richard. Solidarity with Richard. Of course, Indie Media Award honoree in the inaugural class, one of the top guys. Now, another top Indie Media Award honoree that I caught this week, you may or may not know this outlet, Declassified UK. I know you do, Reef. Matt Kennard is one of the co-founders along with Mark Curtis. They're doing some restructuring. Matt left. Mark is really taking over the reins, and he's bringing in further more new people. John McAvoy has been there for a while, but he's now stepped up. I believe he's now managing editor. But he was in London, and this week, or last week, just this week on the 22nd, caught a high-ranking Israeli military delegation who tried to quietly visit London, but got caught outside the Ministry of Defense having a secret meeting. And they basically asked this guy, hey, are you guilty of war crimes? All right. Are you a war criminal? Are you worried about being arrested or tried with war crimes? And he basically shut them down. This guy's name is Oded Basyuk. All right. He visited Britain's Ministry of Defense. All right. He's the head of the IDF Operations Directorate, which is responsible for preparing Israeli military for war. Kind of a big
How do you
role.
even... Yeah.
Which it's constant. Preparing it.
Yeah.
All right. Which means he's there to secure more weapons, more bombs.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
The unit works alongside the IDF's regional commands as well as the Air Force and Navy. Basyuk was on the ground in Gaza during Israel's most recent onslaught and presided over decision-making on last year's offensive in southern Lebanon. Now, this article is a little bit long, but I think it's really important because it also talks about, so this is where he's challenged, and are you a war criminal? I think it's short. Yeah, it's a minute 27. We can play this.
General Basyuk, what did you discuss with the MOD? Are you worried about the ICC investigating you for war crimes? Are you a war criminal, General Basyuk? Are you a war criminal, General Basyuk? Thank you.
Yes and yes is the answers.
I don't think he's worried about being arrested for war crimes there.
Yeah, I don't think he's worried about
it. Are
it.
you worried about being investigated by the ICC for war crimes?
No.
I just filmed the Israeli General Oded Basyuk, who was the operations lead in Gaza in Israel's 50-month brutal genocide in Gaza, walking into the RUSI building behind me on Whitehall in London. We've heard that he was at the Ministry of Defense earlier, along with a delegation of about 7 or 8 Israelis, including generals and other military officials. I tried to put a few questions to the general in front of the building here. He wasn't keen to answer any. The RUSI security slammed the door in my face. So clearly they're trying to keep secret why the Israeli general's here and who he's meeting with.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, shout out.
Wasn't it in England when people were throwing milkshakes at people? Can we bring that back?
It was England? Okay, maybe. Shout out Declassified UK. Great outlet, really. Good journalism, good reporting. They also have been reporting on the spy flights. Okay. And that's something else that it goes into is the depth of the UK military collaboration and how long it's gone back and forth. And that Starmer spoke on the phone with Netanyahu just the other day. All right. And they're having close cooperation, of course, with a war criminal who's wanted by the ICC. That's Keir Starmer is doing that. Said that the prime minister raised the issue of the weapons export licenses to Israel that have been frozen, with Starmer responding that an evaluation of the issue is being carried out. Sure it is. How much is going to end up in his bank account? That will make sure that it gets the way that Israel wants it to go. They're buying our Congress too, and I have a report on AIPAC later to talk about that. But this raises the prospect that the UK government will resume lethal arms exports to Israel should the ceasefire hold. All right, that's what is effectively coming. Again, declassified UK reporting this, talking about the operations directorate and what Basyuk was responsible for and what that directorate has been responsible for. All right, that they are training with the 77th British Army Brigade Barracks, which conducts psychological operations and social media to help fight wars in the information age. How about that, Reef?
Sounds familiar.
All right, specializes in non-lethal forms of psychological warfare, such as cyber attacks, propaganda activities, and counterinsurgency operations online.
Damn.
Okay. Interesting. Now, what's interesting, though this trip was canceled, it still exposed that the leaked Israeli documents demonstrate how cooperation between the IDF and the 77th Brigade continued through 2018 and 19. Right? This has been going back a decade. Declassified also revealed how the UK government developed a secret defense plan with Israel, codenamed Project Hez UK, in 2019 and 20. All right, so original, these names. The project's goal was to counter the destabilizing regional activity of Iran and Hezbollah through enhanced UK-Israel intelligence collaboration and increased military cooperation. How's that? Not so posh, right?
Pretty good.
Thank you.
No.
So again, that was written by John McAvoy over at Declassified, and the video was over by Alex, who had actually confronted the Israeli dude. So, holy crap, what the hell's going on in the UK? They're going fashy. All right, that's that segment right there. So we definitely don't get monetized for stuff like that. So if you are able to and of means, we could really use your support. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. If not, share the stream. Tell your friends. We're live on 6 platforms, maybe even 7 right now. We're live on YouTube and Rumble and we're not on Rockfed. Odyssey, BitChute, Kick, Twitch, and Elon's bullshit platform that he used to call Twitter, and now he likes to call a single letter I don't want to call it. But anyway, the way that you can support this network financially the best and leave us a tip would be to give us a Cash App that takes no fees or very minimal fees whatsoever. Ko-fi takes almost no fees whatsoever. PayPal is small. And then you could also subscribe to the INN newsletter. That uses Stripe, and we talked about Stripe last week. I'd prefer that we not use Stripe if we didn't have to. But whatever you guys are, whatever everyone is willing to do, guys, ladies, everyone, for real, thank you. Really appreciate all the support we could possibly get.
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.
Who are these people?
There's a lot going on with the U.S. committing war crimes when it relates to Israel, ongoing. And to learn a little bit more about that, we're going to rely on our friend Dave DeCamp, friend of the show, friend of the network, over at antiwar.com. All right, U.S. private security contractors who operate checkpoint in Gaza. Let me guess who's going to get involved there. I wonder if a guy named Eric Prince somehow will end up involved one way or another. I'm going to find you. He's going to get you. All right. Armed U.S. private security contractors will begin operating a checkpoint in Gaza in the coming days, Axios reported on Thursday, citing Israeli officials. The report said the U.S. contractors will be deployed to Gaza as part of a multinational group that's been established by the Gaza ceasefire deal and is backed by the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt. Private outsourcing of what could possibly go wrong. Initially, this deployment will involve 2 private American companies. God, I seem to recall something like this happening in Iraq a while back, like Blackwater XO. I don't know. The 2 companies are Safe Reach Solutions and UG Solutions, which employ U.S. military veterans.
Huge.
Well, wait, I'm going to have a little bit of a story about UG Solutions. Actually, I don't know if I have it there.
Huge.
There was a crazy story by Jack at All Source Intelligence over on the Substacks about that Safe Reach Solutions, all right, which
Safe
employs U.S. military veterans. The third company is an Egyptian firm backed by Egyptian intelligence. Naturally.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
The contractors will operate a checkpoint at the Netzarim Corridor, a strip of land just south of Gaza City, where the Israeli military has demolished nearly every building in sight and established military bases.
Can you just in a tab pull up like either Hiroshima or Nagasaki after the bombing?
Send me a link.
Picture of that because it looks.
Send me a link and I'll do that.
Exactly like that. I'll find one.
Frightening. All right. So continuing on, as part of the hostage deal, Hamas wanted Palestinians to be forcibly displaced, who were forcibly displaced from northern Gaza, to be able to pass freely through the corridor. Israel demanded that its forces must inspect every Palestinian that passes through, and the compromise was for private security firms to be involved. That's the compromise. They've been displaced for 15 months, 16 months. That's the compromise. Private security contractor. Thank you. I'll bring that up in a second.
You're welcome.
Copy image. Let's open it here in a new tab. Oh, I can't paste it. See that? All right, let's go back to anti-war. You know what? I can do that here and say open in browser. And then I got a link that I can drop it. Copy.
Yep, that is correct.
Pasta.
That's enough.
Ooh, that's close. That is a historic photo from Japan. Post-atomic bomb. All right.
Yep.
And let's
if
go
you
back.
just want to compare and contrast that with that one. Little too samesies.
So, in recent months, the Israeli military has worked to almost completely destroy the northern Gaza cities of Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, and Jabalia as part of an ethnic cleansing campaign known as the General's Plan. Elements of the Israeli government wanted the campaign to lead to the establishment of Jewish settlements and likely opposed the return of Palestinians to the north. The contractors are expected only to be in Gaza until the end of the first phase of the ceasefire deal, which involves a 42-day truce, at which time Israeli officials, I'm guessing, the IDF would take over, but Israeli officials are threatening to restart the genocidal war, of course, after the 42 days. So, temporary ceasefire, as we had said. But the U.S. war crimes don't stop there, because we've been aiding
till they get enough
and abetting what's happened here, like you mentioned, in the West Bank, and that is being reported upon by Robert Inlakesh from Midpress News. Now, what you see here is a bulldozed street, apparently, with IDF soldiers, monitoring and patrolling everywhere. But what Robert says is that on his first day in office, Donald Trump lifted all sanctions previously placed on Israeli settlers in the West Bank. a political move that coincided with a series of violent attacks by Israeli settlers targeting Palestinians that same night, which went completely unreported just about everywhere.
Yeah.
While the president has publicly committed to combating the violent extremism, extremist settler groups continue to finance their activities through American charities. Yeah, they don't want you to know about that either.
Wait, what?
Yep.
Wait, what?
Yep. On Monday night, with the backing of the Israeli military, settler groups launched a series of violent assaults on residents in the West Bank. The most severe attacks occurred in two villages near Kalkilia, where mass settlers set fires and fired indiscriminately. Amid the chaos, Israeli soldiers deployed tear gas against villagers attempting to flee, leaving 21 injured. All right, so we hear it from Hussam, who says after last night's pogrom by Israeli settler terrorists, the Palestinian village of Al-Funduk is sealed off. Shops are closed, Palestinians are confined to their homes, and only Israeli settlers' cars use the main road. Yeah, that happens in a normal democracy, right?
Yep.
Only democracy in the Middle East. The Israeli army punishes the victims, let's go to that tweet, instead of the perpetrators. And there are the Israeli cars on the road. All right, you got a minute of this driving. We don't have any. Yeah, we do have some. You see all the shops closed. Whoever Ehab Hassan is, he obviously had the ability to drive through somehow. It was in a car, so he could film this with his phone. But it's all Israeli and military vehicles driving.
I saw somewhere that
nobody.
Somehow Israel shot settlers over there. They thought they were Palestinians.
Yes, that happened too. All right. So next, we've got, amidst a wave of violence, an Israeli police officer mistakenly shot two masked settlers, believing them to be Palestinians. Wow, I thought you just said that. In the aftermath, Israeli authorities imposed a complete lockdown on the West Bank, leaving civilians stranded in their cars and on the streets.
Nice.
Following day, Israel announced a major military operation targeting the northern West Bank, beginning with an assault on the Jenin refugee camp. And we've been seeing these awful fucking videos all week coming out of Twitter about the only place you can see them these days. And even they're getting censored. Defense Minister Israel Katz dubbed the campaign Operation Iron Wall, vowing to crush the growing number of anti-occupation resistance groups that have expanded in the region since 2021. I can't imagine why there would be resistance groups. The operation, Katz declared, would draw upon Israel's, quote, method of repeated raids in Gaza, unquote, to achieve its objectives. So bombing all their houses and murdering their whole family in place when they sleep. Gotcha. On January 17th, Washington-based advocacy group Democracy for the Arab World Now, or DAWN, released a report accusing Karen Kayemeth Israel Jewish National Fund and its subsidiaries of funding illegal settlement expansion and encouraging violence against Palestinian civilians. According to the report, the Israeli registered entities use affiliates in the US, Canada, and the UK to raise money. Yes, they do. They certainly do. And they do it through charities and through religious charities, so they do it tax-free on top of it. Dawn has called on the U.S. government to impose sanctions on the organizations it accuses of funding Israeli settler extremism. That'd be nice, except that they also fund those candidates. However, they are far from the only entries using American donations to support such activities. All right. There's another article from Minpress about how Israel isn't leaving Syria and that they They're planning settlements there and permanent land grab. Read that. Mint Press News, another Indie Media Award honoree, as is Robert Inlakesh. We got a double there. An investigation by Haaretz revealed that the Temple Institute, an organization with the stated goal of demolishing the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's, of course, third holiest site, to construct a Jewish synagogue in its place, has received financial backing from a prominent U.S. donor linked closely to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. My guess would be it's Bill Ackman. But it could be any one of these asshole billionaire Zionist lunatics.
Netanyahu?
That guy. No, not that guy, but Bill Ackman. Through platforms like America Gives, a partner of Israel Gives, Americans can make tax-deductible donations directly to the Temple Institute.
There's so many jokes to make about that name.
Yep.
Sorry.
Well,
anyway.
Well, Elon certainly has been giving too.
Yeah.
Or Netanyahu has been giving to Elon
possibly receiving.
Maybe. They're all blowing each other. That's all I can say.
With that.
The organization, which has previously relied on donations for half its funding, benefits from this streamlined flow of contributions, and it isn't the only one. In 2019, The Nation magazine, not crazy fans of them, but sometimes they do okay work, exposed a network of U.S.-registered nonprofit organizations that have been used to finance Israeli extremists. What a surprise. Like I said, charities, usually using under the mask of religiosity. The role of U.S. citizens and their donations in enabling messianic extremist settler movements cannot be overstated. It's our money.
Yeah.
However, the Trump administration has adopted one of the most hardline pro-settler positions in American history, a stance made abundantly clear by the individuals selected to fill key cabinet roles, the most Zionist cabinet in history. On Tuesday, during her confirmation hearing, Trump's nominee for UN Ambassador Elise Stefanik declared her belief that Israel possesses a biblical right to the entirety of the occupied West Bank. And of course, she used the offensive term Judea and Samaria to discuss, to talk about that. Declared, when pressed, she refused to affirm that Palestinians even have a right to self-determination. Who has the right to determine their future? She does. That was something to see. 30 seconds.
I'm rarely surprised by answers in my office, but I did ask you whether you subscribe to the views of Finance Minister Smotrich and the former National Security Minister Ben-Gvir, who believe that Israel has a biblical right to the entire West Bank. And in that conversation, you told me that, yes, you shared that view. Is that your view today?
Yes.
Oh.
She couldn't say that fast enough. Yes. Keep funding me.
I couldn't kick her in the teeth fast enough.
Yes. This comes as little surprise given the financial entanglements at the heart of the Trump campaign. As we've reported on extensively, the campaign's top financier, Miriam Adelson, Israel's wealthiest billionaire, pledged $100 million to support the former president. Now, I think that Elon ended up giving more than Miriam Adelson. I don't know if she was actually his top financier. She was up there. According to Haaretz, the contribution came with a clear understanding Trump would allow Israel to annex the West Bank. So that's what's coming. So they've already taken Gaza now. Now they're taking the West Bank.
Yep.
Okay. Greater
Under
Israel.
American Guarantee. Go check out that segment we did on Wednesday.
Greater Israel Project. Greater Israel Project stuff.
That is correct.
All right. Trump's very own son-in-law, of course.
It is so great.
Jared, $5 footlong Kushner, right? Who should be in jail and close confidant.
Not a foot long.
No. Well, he's got a 5-cent brain though, although he's worth a gazillion dollars. And now he's about to make another deal with the Saudis or with the Qataris or somebody, all right, to sell
A new world order awaits.
Waterfront property in Gaza, and that's what they're going to turn into, like resorts and hotels. All right.
Yeah.
The
and
Kushner
factories.
Yep. The Kushner Foundation funneled money not only to the West Bank settlement of Beit El, but also to an extremist yeshiva, which is a Jewish religious school located in a settlement near Nablus. This yeshiva, infamous for hosting extremist rabbis who help organize violence against Palestinians, pogroms, has been linked to incendiary rhetoric, including providing religious justification for the murder of Arab children. Nice guys. All right. Again, Robert Inlakesh, Indie Media Award honoree 2024, class of 2024, one of the more recent ones. And Mint Press has been one of the original outlets. They're outstanding. Minar Mu, also Alan McLeod, Low Key, Whitney Webb's written for them. Kit Clarenberg and others, tons of them.
Yeah.
But yes, we are heavily censored. We are heavily suppressed. That is why I love the 27 of you here on YouTube and the 5 that are watching right now over on Indie at INN channel. All right, and the 71 watching over on who's over there? Oh yeah, over on Elon's magical machine. But yeah, all these amazing people have already supported our network, tipping us, hooking us up with PayPal, Ko-fi, Cash App, a Substack membership, something to help us keep the lights on, keep the restream going, keep the Canva going so that we can make all these graphics and thumbnails and video shorts and clips. We have a new outro tonight that I'm going to debut. Really excited about that. That'd be nice. So Cash App, $, Indie News Network, INDIE. You see it down there at the ticker. You can get to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. That shows up in the chat. Or you can !donate. Typing that in the chat will bring up the link to do that as well.
You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen.
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.